pause to it so we could start with the meeting. That's fine. Okay, so I'm calling to order this a special legislative meeting of Merrick City Council on for City of Rainier today, Tuesday, December 10, 2022 at 7:01 p.m. We are going to be doing roll call. Jimmy Tarlow.
Here.
Luke Cheswick.
Here.
Valerie Woodall.
Here.
Jared Stolfus.
I'm here.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, can you please lead us on a pledge of allegiance? And we do have a 500 full council, mayor and council on here. So go ahead and lead us on the pledge of allegiance, Jared.
Yep. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Jared. Okay, we are gonna do a review of the agenda. Our Vice Mayor will go ahead and read the agenda as is, and as a point of information, our city manager who has requested for item number 4 to be removed from the agenda. Okay, so go ahead and read the legislative agenda, Jared, please.
Yeah, number 1, call order, pledge of allegiance. Number 2, review of the agenda. Number 3, public comment. Number 4, discussion and vote on Schick Goldstein's Architects Contract on Engineering Administration Services for Putz Hall. Well, I'm sorry, you said we were pulling that item. Sorry.
You still
Putz Hall
have to
Welcome
read
Center.
it because it's part of the agenda, and then
That's
we
true.
remove it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Discussion on vote on Schick Goldstein Architects Contract on Engineering Administration Services for Potts Hall Welcome Center renovation. Number 5, discussion vote on holiday bonus for city staff. Number 6, adjournment.
Thank you so much. So you guys have heard a fair reading of the agenda. With number 4 included, the reason why we originally started doing this is because if we have residents that have either are listening to the meeting that cannot see the agenda, they're able to know what's coming up in the meeting, and then we go item by item. So item number 4, discussion board on Shilks and Goldstein Architects Contract and Engineering Administration Services for Potts Hall has been asked to be removed. Can I get thumbs up from council to go ahead and officially remove it?
So moved that it be moved from the agenda.
So you could just give me thumbs up, and if you guys all agree, it's fine. We don't have to vote on it. You could just have consensus. So I see Luke, you're good. Jimmy, you're good. Valerie, you're good. Jerry, you're good. I'm good. Okay, so item number 4, the agenda. Okay. Thank you guys so much. So Melissa, can you wipe it off? Okay, and in the meantime, so we are approving the agenda as presented. So council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been properly moved and second. Any discussion? Abstentions? Objections? The agenda will move as presented, removing the former number 4, and the number 4 is going to be discussion and vote on holiday bonuses for city staff. We are going to be opening up right now the legislative meeting for public comment. We ask the comment if they could please comment on items that are not on the legislative agenda. If for whatever reason they cannot wait until that one item comes, they're welcome to speak here. You do have 3 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, you have 5 minutes. However, your group members they will decline to make any comments, and you need to be a recognized member of that group to be able to speak, and in doing so, you withdraw, the other members of your group does not get to speak. All right, so do we have anything on Facebook? Okay, and if you're in our online here with us, you just type your name, last name, and street number and block number, and we'll call upon you. We usually wait about a minute to address this. Or close to a minute. Jared, nothing on Facebook still? Thank you. And nothing here in the chat. We're gonna be moving on to the new number 4. Discussion and vote on holiday bonus for city staff. The mayor and council will have a discussion and vote on the holiday bonus for city staff. This is actually one of the reasons why this legislative agenda got put together. It was only one point at a time. The city manager is requesting funds from ARPA, usually comes out of the budget. So that is a change we are having. All right, so council, the floor is yours.
Mayor?
Jamie, go ahead. Sorry, my mic was off.
Just to start out, maybe the city manager can make a presentation and then we can discuss it from them, what we're doing.
Okay, go ahead, city manager.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So as a city manager, I'm proposing holiday bonus for all the employees, the city employees, which we have 40 employees, to receive $500 this year as a holiday bonus. And the total of this cost is going to be $20,000. And the reason that last year we asked for $250, this year we're asking for $250 more because of the higher inflation, and you all know it. And my team has reached out to me, the department heads and staff, that they were looking to get at least, $500. And we have given the employees, 3% COLA, which again, you all know it, that it's more than that, the inflation rate. And so we have two options. Either we can use the ARPA expenses, and we can use, and I have consulted with ARPA consultant, and we could use ARPA money to pay this holiday bonus, or the second option that we have, without any budget amendment, we can go to our operating expenses and use line item 5,000, which is the wages and expenses. And for past 6 months almost, we are 125,000 below the budget, and that's the reason. And the reason is because we have few vacancies. So I do appreciate your attention to this, and just what I can say at the same time on behalf of my staff, that Merry Christmas to Mayor and Council.
Mr. Kamali, can you also let us know, part of the things that we also do year round for the staff is also release them early, correct? 2 hours
Yes.
before, and it's not just for the holidays.
No.
Anytime.
Yes, anytime there is a holiday, like, this Friday, because of the Christmas day on Sunday, I'm releasing the staff 2 hours early. And, but that Mayor staff are working so hard, and they are very dedicated team. So I do appreciate that.
I just want to make sure that in the record, the residents also know that's something the city does. That's the reason why the city hall is closed 2 hours early. So
Thank
it's not that we have not been, doing other stuff for the staff aside from the COLA, and every year we've been giving the bonuses. Okay, so make sure it's a little bit balanced there, because it's sounding like we do nothing, and that's definitely not what we have been doing. Okay, Mr. Kamali, anything else to add to this?
No, thank you. As long as Mayor and Council approve that $500, I'll be so happy with my staff.
Okay, Council, the floor is yours.
I have I guess I have 2 questions. First, I thought December 23rd was just declared by Governor Hogan as a state holiday. I think he did that a couple of days ago, so I would look into that. And then I think I have a question about how this would affect hiring. You said there's a couple of vacancies. I guess the question is, how many vacancies, and does this affect hiring for those staff in the future, in the next couple of months.
Can I respond, Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Kamali.
Well, the state holiday that was announced by Larry Hogan for Friday, I believe that that's for state holiday, but again, maybe I'm not right. It's up to mayor and council, but I think Larry Hogan gave the state employee Friday off. And we could do the same thing if mayor and council wishes to do that. And regarding the vacancy, we have 2 police officers vacancy at police department, 1 social service, 1 labor at public works, and 1 code inspector at code. So no, it's not gonna make that much difference because we have passed 6 months and we have enough money to hire the new employee anytime they come on board.
Okay, Valerie, did it answer your questions?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, the other thing is that we do have employee engagements. The one for Friday has been canceled due to weather. I think I just saw HR send something out. Correct, Melissa?
Yes, because of
Mhm.
because
Go ahead.
of the weather, we just cancel it. And again, no, we're not gonna have that one, and we're gonna have it next year, 23.
Okay, thank you. Jared, Jamie, Luke?
I don't have anything additional.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I mean, it's up to the city manager, but what's gonna be the bad weather day, Thursday or Friday? One of the days was supposed to have bad
Tomorrow's
weather.
Friday is the worst,
Yeah,
especially in the
Since there's a
afternoon.
possibility of having, well, I mean, I don't know what involves the snow, but maybe it would be a good day to have since the governor decided to take the day, have it as a state holiday. Maybe we should policy, but
we could, then you guys also need to inform the community not to take the recycles on Friday.
yeah, well, that we should do. But I mean, between the weather, well, the weather doesn't look like snow, but
Okay,
No, we're not gonna have snow, but we're gonna have rain and a mix, but it's gonna get real cold.
okay. Anything else to add, Jimmy?
no.
Luke, go ahead.
Appreciate everyone's comments and questions and clarifications. I support this and I support it out of the wages expense account just to keep as much money as we can in ARPA. I know folks have talked about Potts Hall, Spring Park, a few different things we may want to spend that ARPA money on. So I'd like to keep the flexibility in that ARPA funding for us to use and fund this out of wages. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Mr. Kamali, is there a reason why there was not more funding given to public works and police, seeing that any emergency they have to run to? And even when the staff is being released 2 hours early, police department has to be there no matter what?
Well, you know that on the day that is holiday, if somebody works, they get holiday double pay. So, and we have already this one set up in the paycheck system, like whoever is working on the Christmas day, if they work 12 hours, they get 36 hours, 12 hours for the holiday and 24 hours for the shift that they're working. And I think it's been a practice like this. So if we have to change anything, we need to have a conversation on that.
That's not what I asked. I said, like, let's say the 23rd, if it wasn't like a state holiday, it's a regular day, right?
Yes.
Office staff is released 2 hours early, and any of the other staff, like code, public works, everybody goes off 2 hours early. In this case, the police department, the officers, they don't get to do 10 hours instead of 12. They have to do 12 hours because we have a 24-hour police department.
Right.
Was any consideration to balance it out? I mean, you're asking for 20,000. Was any consideration made to have the police department maybe get a little more than the rest of the staff? Or public works, because they're here when the staff goes home 2 hours early as a perk? The police department does not get that option. They have
Well,
to.
the admin, mayor, the admin at the police department goes, and right now we are in negotiation with the mayor, with the city attorney and FOP to do something for the police officers that is stay during that time. And, but at this point, I am looking for to have equal, distribution for everybody. I don't really want to single out anybody at this point.
I'll tell you why I don't find it's equal distribution, Mr. Kamali, because the administrative staff goes home on the 20, if the 23rd wasn't a regular holiday, they're going home 2 hours early. So that means that 2 hours are city paid and PD does not have. So I know you guys are looking at me like you guys didn't know that. Yeah, if the staff is released early, the city's paying those 2 hours at whatever the rate the staff gets paid. So, some administrative staff, that's what it is. So that's an extra additional. So maybe even if we had done 250, we also have released the staff, like I believe it came out to what, 10 hours, Kamali?
Yeah.
It came out to like 10 hours paid by the city through the year. That's the reason why I was asking, because our officers do not get, our officers have to stay for their 12 shifts. That's where I find like it might not be equal. When it comes to them putting in the extra time, they don't get the 2 hours extra. So we might have to do something to be able to balance it out, because if not, it's not. Jimmy, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Sure. I actually don't really think we're allowed to unilaterally do that, but I might suggest that the city manager talk to the team about putting that something in the contract when other rest of the staff is let off 2 hours early. Maybe the police will get some kind of benefit, but it's not something we should do unilaterally, especially during negotiations. I mean, it's something we should actually, maybe the city manager and the attorney should actually make that possibly a part of the contract. But I don't think it's something we should do ourselves. I don't think we're allowed to.
So it doesn't sound like I have support, Jimmy, but this has nothing to do with the contract, because it's just like pointing my point across. I think in the future that should be a consideration on it.
It does, though.
So,
You're not
but let me
allowed to
finish.
unilaterally do that.
It's like I give you guys your 3 minutes to do whatever you guys need to say, right?
Sure.
But I need to make sure
Uh-huh.
that is pointed out there, that because the way it makes it sound like employees are not getting anything from us until they get this to 53% COLA, and they do get those that extra 10 hours that they get sent home. Aside, like I'll give you an example. Friday, they were going to have an event paid by the city, and obviously their hours are going to be paid while they're at the event, plus get to go home early. The police department doesn't have always that option, because that's the reason I was asking, was any consideration made in that sense? And that's a legit question. Whether you guys want to do it or not, that's a different story. But I wanted to make sure at least it was pointed out that these things are happening. Because I know in the past, I believe it was Luke who mentioned a couple of years back saying, do staff get to go home early certain days in order for us to balance the funding we were not giving them. And that's the reason why we started also make sure that we, that the city allowed, did that for the staff as well. So I want to make sure to also put it into perspective, because it's not just the bonus at the end of the year, but it also has to do with the other stuff that we do for them through the year. Well, anyways, there's a motion on the floor, if anything, to approve, but I want to make sure if it's not done this year, to be taken into consideration for next year.
Again, Mayor, I just want to, okay, Luke has his hand up. Sorry.
Go ahead, Luke.
I just, Mayor, I'm trying to understand your interest here. I think what I'm hearing is that, because this is usually just a little procedural thing we do every year, and there's never really much discussion. And so I'm trying to understand what your interest is here in this, in the conversation.
Usually, we get 250. That's basically what's been done year to year. This time around, the city manager doubled up the amount of bonus that they were coming. That's what there's even a discussion. This discussion have happened like prior, not at the meeting, but since you guys didn't want to have it prior, we're having it at the meeting. So you're right, because it's like, it's a little bit longer of a procedure, but for me, it's like discussion should have been like the proposal should be forward, which have been a counter proposal of anything, but usually we do not get double the increase on something that they have put forward to. And at no point was it even mentioned through the budget that the bonus was going to be double. So usually in the budget, we'll go ahead and put some parameters to saying like, okay, like the bonus is there and more or less the city manager calculates the bonus within the salary. This time around, it wasn't done that way. Therefore, that's the reason why we're here for this discussion.
Okay, I never remember us talking about holiday bonuses during any budget discussion in any year I've been here. I'm confident that the reason for the $250 extras is related to the inflationary pressures everybody's been saying in light of the 3% COLA everyone's received. And I think this is a good thing, and I think we should move forward with it. I think that if we want to have discussions about holiday bonuses in the budget, I think that would be I'm open to that discussion during budget seasons moving forward so that any confusion is taken away. And to the extent that police officers who have to be here all the time, I understand that interest as well. To the extent that wants to be discussed during police negotiations with the FOP, I think that's a proper subject of negotiation because it refers to people's compensation. And so leave that for that table. And I support the motion to, I don't even know what the motion was, but that's my piece. Thanks.
Well, that's your piece. I already said my piece. I'm not against the 500. What I'm saying is like, please consider that for the future. And that's where I finished. So in the past, it has been discussed. If you don't have recollection of it, that's okay too. That's more than fine. That's the reason why it was a small procedure to do it before. Either way, I'm not saying I'm opposed, but I said, please reconsider that in the future. And that's it. I mean, you guys want to continue going around in circles about it. I'm okay with it as well. But I already, I'm calling the question. Go ahead. But please don't make me sound like I'm the bad guy trying to take funding away from staff, because that's not the way this is. So can I have a motion on the floor to approve this money and tell me from what part you wanted to make it happen?
I move that we approve the $500 bonus for staff for it to come from the wage expense account in accordance with the city manager's proposal. Thanks.
There's a motion on the floor.
So moved.
Is there probably move in second? Any discussion? Hearing none. You have something to add?
I was just going to say I really appreciate staff, and I think this is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Anybody else? Since one of you guys opened the floor, I need to open it for all. Jimmy?
I have nothing to add.
Luke? Jared? Okay, we're going to call for the vote. Any abstentions? Objections? Okay, hearing none, this item passed 500. All right, next item.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, this motion has been adjourned. Can you move on to the next meeting? I am reading the message. Ocalix. Disculpen, no tenemos interpretación, pero básicamente lo que estábamos hablando era del bonus de los trabajadores y se habían considerado darle un poco más a un grupo de ellos, en este caso Obras Públicas y el Departamento de Policía, porque ellos trabajan horas extras y de tiempo de emergencia en comparación de los otros empleados. Y acaba de pasar de darle un bonus de $500 a cada empleado. Ok, eso básicamente es la traducción. All right, so we're moving on to our work session. Items and discussions, we're going to do call to order. Jimmy?
Here.
Jared?
Here, sorry, I was muted.
Valerie?
I'm here.
Luke?
Here.
Okay, I'm here. So le voy a dar, ¿cómo se llama? La versión pequeña de la traducción, okay? Disculpen, no tenemos traducción. So they're asking if we could If we could let them know what we're speaking to, because you have Spanish speakers on the line. So I give them a summary of it. Okay, so we're gonna be reviewing the agenda. Jared, can you go ahead and read the full agenda?
Number one, call to order. Number two, review of the agenda. Number three, presentation and discussion on rent stabilization. Number four, presentation and discussion on tool design contract to include the Vision Zero action plan. Number five, presentation and discussion on the Public Works Department first quarter report. Number six, discussion on amending Resolution 5, 2019 newsletter guidelines. Number seven, introduction of Ordinance 11-2022, amending the Code of Ordinance of the City of Mount Rainier, Chapter 1D Ethics, to incorporate changes required by state law to local ethics ordinance regarding conflicts of interest and financial disclosures, and to update references to state law. Number eight, ARPA discussion and update. Number nine, presentation of minutes. Number 10, adjournment.
Okay, well, that was a fair reading of the agenda. Council, is there something you wanna remove or add to this agenda? Please advise.
I have no changes, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Rest of the council, please state where you're at.
No changes.
It's fine.
All right, thank you guys so much. We're moving on to, sorry, so the agenda has been reviewed. Give me 1 second. Let me see if our presenter's there, because I was supposed to text her. Where are you, presenter? Oh, Tram, you're here. Thank you, Tram. You're so responsible. Okay. All right. So right now we're gonna have a presentation and discussion on rent stabilization. Mayor and Council received a presentation by Ms. Tram Huang, Senior, sorry, I'm like moving everywhere. Associate of Housing for Policy Link. Thank you, Tram. Tram will have a 10-minute presentation. Then we're gonna open it up for council for questions. We also have here Councilmember Jocelyn Rao from Bladensburg. And we have Councilmember Martin Mitchell from Laurel also joining us tonight. Okay, thank you all for being here. I know you guys are fighting your own fights in your own cities. So I appreciate you guys being here. Okay, so Tram, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tram Huang. I am a senior associate at Policy Link. I'm based in the Twin Cities, but we're a national organization. I'm honored to be here tonight. Thank you for your invitation to speak. I'm going to share my screen and I have a, oops. Oh, I'm sorry. Could the host please give me permission to share my screen? I have a really quick PowerPoint slide that I'd like to go over with you all. Okay, I think it is working now. All right. Great. Sorry, let me move some things around my screen and get started. All right, thanks for your patience. Sorry about that. So like I said, my name is Tram Huang. I'm at Policy Link. We are an organization, a national research and policy action institute that is focused on advancing racial and economic equity. And our target in terms of who we work for and who we are accountable to are the 100 million residents of the United States who are living at or below poverty. And within our large team of about 80 people, I am one of the housing team members, and I specialize in anti-displacement and tenant protections policy. So that is why I'm speaking here today. Just to give folks kind of an overview of what you might already know, if you've already seen the National Low Income Housing Coalition's report from this year, you know that millions of people in Maryland are struggling to afford a home. For minimum wage workers, they would have to work 93 hours a week or more than 2 full-time jobs in order to afford a typical 2-bedroom in the state of Maryland. And when we look more specifically at Prince George's County, what we know is that across race, class, and geography, renters of all races are deeply impacted by rising rent costs. So here we are looking at a chart that shows the amount of people who are living in a cost burden situation, which means that they are paying more than 30% of their income on rent. And here we see that number is consistently 80 and over 80% of the population in Prince George's County. So as you know, that's what you're all facing. And this is where rent stabilization policies come into play. So what I like to tell folks is that, our housing system was broken by 1,000 paper cuts, and therefore we need 1,000 solutions to it. And one of these solutions, as a part of the entire package, is rent stabilization. I think you'll hear some people say rent control, some people say rent stabilization, some people say anti-rent gouging. And so I just want to set us kind of ground us in the way that I will be speaking to it from a more academic perspective. So when I talk about rent stabilization policies, I mean rent stabilization policies that are sometimes referred to as second generation rent regulations, so more modern forms of rent control. And these are policies that create an allowable, predictable rate of increase in rent annually. And this is contrasted with rent control policies, which, when folks talk about New York City or first generation rent control, that is more of the policy that they're talking about. And those policies are more strict, right? They're less flexible. They regulate rent increases through price ceilings, and they have a different impact on our housing market because they are less flexible than rent stabilization policies. So that's just a very particular differentiation that I want to make before we talk more. So I want to speak to where rent stabilization is working across the country. Something that many people are surprised to hear is that over 180 cities in the United States have rent stabilization laws in place. And rent stabilization has a long history in the United States going back to 100 years ago during wartime, and even before that. More recently, in 2019, both Oregon and California have passed statewide rent regulations. And between 2020 and 2022, we have seen multiple cities pass rent stabilization laws, both through the ballot and through city council action or county commissioner action. And the great thing about this long history of rent stabilization in the United States is that there's a long history to learn from. And what that means is that policies are constantly changing and evolving as we learn from other cities' policy design, some flaws, some learnings that we can build upon. A few examples of these learnings are that CPI or inflation can be a tumultuous indicator for rent. And we've seen that in how many cities have actually amended their policies to change the cap because they were CPI dependent, and those caps were much too high in these historic times of high inflation. Other cities have also learned that new construction exemptions can sometimes create perverse incentives to tear down, naturally occurring affordable housing. And so there's been a movement to kind of limit new construction exemptions. We also know from a huge collection of research that vacancy decontrol serves as an incentive for evictions, especially when rent stabilization is not paired with just cause protections. So that's something that cities are learning over time. And then generally, we're learning that exemptions create dual housing markets, which is not healthy, because we are then creating a housing market in which tenants are protected, and then an alternate market where tenants are at the whim of the market. A few examples of rent stabilization policies that have been passed in recent years. This is kind of a chart of, like I said, there's over 180 policies, so this is just a smattering of them. But here we see that in Oakland and Richmond, California, their annual cap is 60% of CPI or 3%, whichever is lower. In Santa Ana, California, we see 80% of CPI or 3%, whichever is lower. Pasadena's cap is 75% of CPI. In Perth Amboy, New Jersey, they have a cap of 3% or 2.5% if the tenant also pays the water bill. And then in Portland, Maine, their policy, which has recently been amended, caps annual rent at 70% of CPI. So if a common question that folks ask is, we hear 2, 3, 4%. It sounds like a very small number. So I just like to put that in to perspective. I like to apply real life scenarios so that folks can see that 3%, especially when you're paying a rent of $2,000, $2,500, can still be a lot for a family. So for example, we'll talk through a scenario with property taxes increasing. So let's take the scenario of a 20-unit apartment building that currently has rents set at $1,500 a month. With a 3% annual increase, rents would increase $45 per unit per month, resulting in an annual rental income increase of over $10,000 for the building. And so when we hear about, obviously we know that costs are rising, utilities, property taxes, insurance. When we put this into perspective, 3% for this building is over $10,000. And then another example I'll walk through is utilities. So for example, if rent is $1,100 and $50 of that goes towards a utility, if the utility increases by 50%, so that seems like a massive jump, right? We think 50%. That is a huge number. If utility increases to $75, that would be a $25 rent increase, which is actually equal to a 2.27% rent increase. So generally what I like to say is that proportionality matters when it comes to percentages, right? If rent is increasing by, if utilities and other costs are increasing by large numbers, the increase that is reflected in the rent is actually a proportion of how much that utility or cost is in relation to total rent. And of course, we also know that there are scenarios where 3% is not enough, right? And in those cases, that is why a fair rate of return aspect of the policy exists. And so when we look at case law in the United States, courts have ruled that rent control or rent stabilization laws must allow landlords to receive a fair rate of return. And that is why all rent stabilization policies in existence across the country require a process through which landlords can apply for an exemption to the cap, whatever it is set at, whether that is 1%, 2%, CPI plus 10, whatever that cap is. Every city that has a rent stabilization policy has a process for the landlord to apply for an exemption to the cap so that they can get a fair rate of return. This is the first line of defense against litigation, and the fair rate of return element of policies has withstood lawsuits across the country. And I just want to name that having a fair rate of return policy means that you're more likely to win in court. That does not mean that there won't be lawsuits. I think it's important to name that across the country, every time a rent stabilization policy is passed, it is a tactic of the real estate lobby to file a lawsuit. Litigation is a tactic, regardless of whether there's actually a case to be won. It's happening in cities across the country, actually not just for rent stabilization policies, but any tenant protection policy. And it is a tactic that is used to slow down implementation and create a bit of confusion in the general public about, what policies are being enacted and what is being implemented. So just to name that, there is no policy that is litigation free because anyone can file a lawsuit, but fair rate of return ensures that you have a policy that will win in court. The most common measure for fair rate of return was created by Kenneth Barr. He is known as the country's leading expert on fair return, and his method, which is using the maintenance net operating income, that methodology has been used in dozens of cities' implementation rules as a way to measure what is a fair rate of return. And so that is just something that I wanted to touch on because I know that when it comes to creating policy, we want to create sound public policy. And I know that's a little bit short, but I want to make sure to, have time for questions and other discussions. So this is my contact information. And hope I didn't take up too much of your time. With that, I'll stop my share.
Thank you so much. You were like on the dot, like 10 minutes. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to open up the floor to council. We also have members of the community that would like to speak. Okay, and I think there's like somebody's helping with translating on where they're at on location, so that's going to help me because a lot to cover. Okay, so I'm going to start with we're going to start with Valerie, Jared, Luke and Jimmy. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I think it's helpful. Have you worked with other, I guess I have two questions. Have you presented to other cities in Maryland? And have you worked at all with the Prince George's Department of Housing and Community Development or because they have a number of programs on housing and a number of reports as well, specific to Prince George's County and various cities. So I just wanted to know if you've engaged with them at all.
Yeah, of course. So I'm happy to answer that. I have not engaged with the Prince George's County Department of Health or Community Services. I have been talking to a number of cities in Maryland, including Laurel, Hyattsville, Greenbelt, and I think a few of those council members are here today. I also, as a part of my role, have been talking to elected officials, whether that's state legislators or city council members across the country who are considering rent stabilization policies.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Valerie? You're good?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, perfect. Jared?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming in. It's immensely helpful, the context and experience. And I mean, this is, something that I think is very important for us to be considering, and your presentation and background information here is really helpful. Can you speak a little bit more? You mentioned that, a common delay or sort of delay tactic or oppositional tactic is to bring legal action, whether it's warranted or valid or not. Could you kind of speak to how that's played out in a little bit more detail? In Maryland, if you can, but in other states, if you don't have, if there's not a good example here.
Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to think of I'm not a lawyer, and so case law is not my expertise, but I am trying to go through my mental Rolodex. I believe there's a case, Tyler v. College Park in Maryland. That was a lawsuit trying to undermine the rent control or rent stabilization ordinance, and I believe it lost in court. Partially because there was a fair rate of return process, but also because it was found that the city had the right to pass the policy to impact, to bring about like that public need and to meet the public need of what the rent stabilization policy could deliver. In terms of across the country, what we know is that anytime a tenant protection policy is passed, whether that is changes to tenant screening to be less discriminatory, sometimes even advance notice to give tenants a heads up on when, how long they have to move, or even advance notice for a building, their home to be sold. In addition to rent stabilization and just cause, those are all tenant protection policies that have quite often resulted in a lawsuit, and that is an attempt to slow down implementation or just to create some confusion. And I can say that the majority of those cases are won. Oftentimes they take a long time, just to the speed of our judicial system and the backups in courts, right? But many times the arguments are very weak, and it is just the tactic of using up time and slowing things down that is being used. And of course, it all comes down to building a sound policy. That's like the number one way to, first of all, avoid litigation, but secondly, to ensure that any litigation results in a favorable decision for the city and its residents.
Thank you so much, Jared. That cover your questions?
Yeah, I think so. I appreciate you flagging the Tyler versus College Park case, and I'll definitely want to dig in that one more. But I think thanks for the summary and recap of the outcome.
So I'll be sharing the things that Councilor Mitchell shared with me as well, but hold on, let me turn my camera for a minute. It's something along this line, so. Okay, I think that's the package that he's referring to. So it was a lot to throw it all at you guys, but basically it covered that. And I think also their city attorney mentioned that one as well. But I'll send you that information as well, so you guys can have some nice winter break reading. Okay. Go ahead, Luke, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for being here, giving the presentation. I have a question on the fair market rate of return, or maybe that's I'm using the wrong words. Is that a number that the city has to determine every year on its own, or is that a number that's just decided through the litigation? The landlord will say, I think this is lower than the fair market rate of return, and so I argue that it's this, and then you have to litigate that every year.
Sure, that's a great question. So usually these processes for exemptions are, they vary from city to city because it is the department that implements it that gets to decide the rules, whether that's, your housing department, your Department of Safety and Inspections. It is, there isn't much litigation involved with the actually deciding the fair rate of return process. The piece I had said about litigation was more about having fair rate of return prevents litigation. But when it comes to the actual process of, let's say, for example, I'm a landlord, I have gone through my numbers this year, and for the upcoming year, I believe that the cap is not enough. The process that is outlined by whatever entity in the city that enforces it would entail, it looks different in every city, but it generally entails the following steps. The landlord has to apply for an exemption to make the claim of fair return. They have to provide some sort of evidence that this is necessary, or else everyone would just come flooding in and demanding this exception, right? So there must be some evidence. And then based on the fair rate of return methodology that was developed by Kenneth Barr, the amount is actually, so it's based on this maintenance net operating income. So what you do is you create a base rent, which is wherever the landlord's rent was at the year you choose as base. Some cities have chosen the year that's not during the pandemic because that's just been an economically tumultuous time. So let's say 2019, for example. And then fair rate of return based on that MNOI formula has been equal to inflation in that year for that region. And so, for example, let's say it's 2020, the year is 2020, I'm a landlord and I need an exemption. I have evidence that, let's say I needed to replace a leaking roof. I need an exception to the policy. You kind of turn in that information, and then the fair rate of return that you would get as your exception would be equal to inflation that year. Between the year that you determine your base rent, which in some scenarios is 2019, sometimes it's just the year prior, plus the percent that is equal to CPI. So generally, the fair rate of return is based on consumer price index or inflation. But then again, the very specific formulas vary from city to city.
Okay. Thanks. No other questions right now.
Okay, Jamie, the floor is yours.
Thank you for your very good presentation. Can I share your mental Rolodex? I like the concept of a mental Rolodex. I have to figure that out myself. But anyway, thank you. I think you answered a lot of questions and you were quite on point.
Thank you so much. The latest ARP article that came out, I'll be sharing this with you guys. So I think some people think that it's just an immigrant issue or like low income, but I think they also don't take into account that our seniors are also being displaced. We have a lot of seniors that are renting, and the article goes step by step by statistics of how many of our seniors are also going to be displaced because they have a fixed income. And as prices continue to rise in apartment, they're putting themselves in a very bad situation, which leads to homelessness. Actually, somebody that was featured right there, I don't know if you can see it, is one of the residents from Laurel. So I'll be sharing that with you guys as well. I did as I'm part of, we are part of the Maryland Rent Stabilization Coalition. We actually had a meeting today and addressing the various issues. So this is not just Mount Rainier thinking about this, is various cities, but also other counties along, including there's discussion of our county having thoughts about doing this as well. You did hear some of the cities that are involved in it. The other point to address is like the exception clause is part of the one that I submitted to you guys, and I'll resend it to you guys as well. So that way, that should be able to cover when it comes to them having a method in case they need to do something extra. Let's say that if they need to change all the roofings in the buildings, and therefore it's going to create like a bigger, a bigger expense, right? They will have to like submit all those documents, to the city in this case for it to be reviewed. And it's showing that, like, in reality, this is what happens. So that way there's a balance to it. The other thing is like it will create the ability for us to know in all these apartment units what the price is that they're charging, and the price is attached to the unit, not to the renter. So that way, when the renter leaves, it does not create like a big vacuum where they could like increase the rent ridiculously in order to get a new tenant, because that's part of the problems that are also been happening. And that way does not create some fairness. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the floor. If any of the council members from other cities are here, would like to add anything to it. Martin, can you talk a little bit about the coalition and the goal of it as well? And Jocelyn, if you wanna say something, you're welcome to say it as well. So Martin, the floor is yours, and then I'll open it out to the community.
Sure, I'll keep it very brief. My name is Councilmember Mitchell. I'm an at-large council member from the city of Laurel. Thanks for having me. I would say that the fight for tenant protections in Laurel started back in March. And so since then, I've been able to, I would say, help inspire other cities to take this up. We have seen continued increases, some upwards of 50%. And so I would say personally, myself, I've negotiated with 2 or 3 landlords to come down on those increases. But, one of the things that I've told my council colleagues is that, I would hope that we can do something long-term, at least in terms of rent increases. I think one of the things that, Tron mentioned is, rent stabilization is not the end all be all, but it will help thousands of people tomorrow. And so we started as a Laurel Housing Justice Coalition. And so far, it has 2 food pantries in our city called the Laurel Advocacy Referral Services, Fish of Laurel. It also has the Prince George's County NAACP, of course, CASA, the Prince George's Change Makers, and then most recently, SEIU has joined the coalition. And so since, I think there's a few other organizations, but since there's been other interest in other cities, in Prince George's County especially, we changed the name at the last meeting to the Prince George's County Housing Justice Coalition. And so there's been several members from Greenbelt. We recently had a presentation at Greenbelt. And then also there's been a lot of interest from Bladensburg. And there's also been members attending from Cheverly and Forest Heights. So I think that, this is definitely an issue that cities are going to continue to grapple with. And of course, I think the county is going to do something as well. But I think that my message to, city leaders is that, I would love the county to do something, but hopefully we can, dictate what we want to do in our city and then, basically help the county as they come up with a guideline. And yeah, that's all I got. I saw my time is up.
The time for the whole thing. Council, can you go ahead and put 10 minutes on the clock? We do have a lot of speakers to speak on this subject.
Yep.
And if you ever have questions, you can call me. We're also discussing this in Laurel.
Thank you, Martin. So it's been properly moved and second. Any objections? Discussion, abstentions? Hear none, we're gonna add 10 more minutes, Melissa. Thank you guys so much. All right, Jocelyn, do you want to add anything or you're good? I think Councilmember
Thank you,
Jocelyn.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Mayor Benitez. I echo everything that Councilmember Mitchell has said. And he actually was very inspirational in the work that Bladensburg is doing. But I also want to, I know the presenter this evening spoke about just cause eviction laws. And I want to really hone in your attention on that, because that's where our senior citizens are being pressured to move out of their homes because these landlords are coming in. We're seeing it here in the town of Bladensburg and drastically increasing 80-year-olds' rent. It's, I mean, drastic to the tune of 110%. I'm sorry, my daughter is not feeling well today. To the tune of 110%, which is cruel. And they're doing that because they want to be able to price the residents out that have been paying, you know, for so long, and being able to increase it so that they cannot afford it, so they have to move out. And so that is an example that we're seeing here in the town of Bladensburg. And I just, you know, urge all of, you know, my colleagues all over Prince George's County to really take a look at it, because, you know, we want people to be able to afford to live, but you know, we have to do this fair and equitable. So it has to be fair for the landlords, so that they can continue to make money, but it has to be fair for our residents as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. We're hope the little one's feeling better soon, and thank you for being here tonight as well. Luke, I saw your hand quickly go up. Was that just bringing it down, or you have something else to add before I open it up?
Yeah, I had one quick question and I didn't know who could answer it. I'm very supportive of this in general. One of the questions I had was how a city our size is so small and we don't have a lot of staff. And just a question on like administering, who administers, if there's a negotiation with the landlord, or if there's litigation, is that just our city attorney can handle that? And just trying to understand like the amount of workload and capacity building that a city needs to have to implement this. And I don't know if anyone has any answer. I'm just kind of throwing that question out there. Thanks.
So go ahead, Tram.
Thanks. Yeah, if it's okay, I can speak to an example of this. For example, in St. Paul, so this is a population of 300,000 people. About half of them, more than half of them are renters. So just to give you a sense of what they did there, within the first month of implementation, the entire city received under 15 requests for an exemption. And so I think that is just, that honestly was lower than I expected. I think it just shows that rent stabilization works, right? Unless you have a valid reason, you wouldn't apply for an exemption. And for that city of St. Paul, I believe the Department of Safety and Inspections hired 2 to 3 people. And again, that's a city of 300,000. And then when it comes to enforcement and implementation, I think that's something that cities kind of grow into, and requires a lot of support from, honestly, tenant organizers to help get the word out, because many times tenants might not know who to go to when their rent is increased and they have a question like, is this legal? And so tenant organizers tend to be play a supportive role in terms of helping people understand their rights, and then helping tenants actually fight for their rights to be enacted. So that's kind of a quick glimpse into one city.
So there is part, hold on, Martin. Part of the resolution, of the ordinance, go ahead if you read it. There is an amount that right now is there's like $50 per unit that is being put right there in order for the apartments to be able to help. So that way it helps support like the extra person that'll be able to take up on this position as well. So
Got it.
that you found that, I mean, that number could go up and down depending what we decide to do, right? However, that will allow for that to be able to hire the person to be able to support that the program. Also, when they're talking about it, it gives you basically the virtual, it gives you like a standing of where the rents are at, right, for each of the apartments. So that way, if the increase happen on one apartment, they'll be able to report it, because that information is public, right? That information is accessible to people. So if they're charging somebody for apartments significantly high, or like, let's say in the case of one of the apartments, it went from 900 to 1,050, like overnight. We didn't even know, had the residents not told us nothing. So they'll have to report that to us, right? So that way we're basically the balancer. But yeah, within the ordinance, go ahead and check on it. It shows like, a fee that'll be added to them in order to be able to fund this program as well.
Smart.
Yeah. So that's the fee. And Councilor Martin, you have something else to add? I know you're good with it.
I was just gonna say, when I communicated with the St. Paul legislator, Nelsie Yang, and asked her about what the cost was, she said $40,000, and I think it was to hire 2 additional people
Okay.
to help. So that was kind of my most direct example. And I'll give you Nelsie's information as well from St. Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. And what you wanted 30 seconds to say what you told me?
I was just saying, I talked about the Prince George's one, but every third Thursday we have a Maryland statewide rent stabilization coalition meeting. And today we had about 20 people on there, from delegates to leaders from Montgomery County to Anne Arundel County. And so, I think that this is an issue that we will see regionally.
Yeah, so it's bigger than that. All right, perfect. So I'm gonna open it to the community council. We're good so far with the questions per percentage, right? So let me open it up. I do have quite a few people that are here on the line to speak on this. Gloria Rivas, 46,027th Street. Gloria, the mic is yours. And where are you, Gloria? Hola.
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Gloria Rivas y buenas noches, alcaldesa del concilio. Mi nombre es Gloria Rivas.
Gloria, iba a decir, hay un soundback que no se puede escuchar muy claro, ¿ok? So tienes que, si está otra computadora cerca o teléfono, tienes que bajar el volumen o alejarlo de donde estás.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Gloria Rivas, vivo acá en la ciudad de Rainier. Estoy aquí para que se lleve a cabo la estabilidad de la renta. Mi renta es de 1,185 y necesitamos que nos ayuden para que se apruebe esta estabilidad y podamos superarlos un poquito más y seguir adelante, porque nos urge ya que nos ayuden y pasar esta etapa de frustración que tenemos toda la comunidad acá. Entonces, y estamos aquí apoyando y viendo a ver si salimos adelante. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Good evening.
Oh, go ahead. Thank you. I was like,
Hi, everyone. This is Jorge from Casa. I'm going to be translating for all the community members. So that was Gloria Rivas. She's a city resident of Mount Rainier. She's here speaking in support of rent stabilization because right now there is, she said tenants are going through a tough time. We've, lost a lot, but at the same time, we are in need of relief, and that relief can be done legislatively with our council members. We really need rent stabilization for our communities and more than anything for us renters. So I hope that you guys can consider this and listen to our voices. Thank you.
all right, thank you, Council. Can you guys put 10 minutes on the clock again, please? Time has run out.
So moved.
Okay, I'll second just to explicit discussion, objections, abstentions. Hearing none, Melissa, add 10 more minutes. Thank you. Next speaker on the list is Teresa Romero from 3014 Chauncey. Teresa, the floor is yours.
Buenas noches, concilio y alcaldesa.
Buenas noches.
Mi nombre es Teresa Romero, vivo en la 3314 Chauncey Place de Rainier. Estoy aquí para apoyar la causa de la estabilización de la renta, ya que tenemos en el concilio muchas personas que nos apoyan, a los más necesitados, pues que somos los latinos, y eso me alegra mucho. Y queremos pues que ustedes nos ayuden y nos puedan dar la estabilización de la renta pronto, pues, porque la necesitamos, porque ya a principios del siguiente año estamos otra vez con esa carga encima que vamos a renovar contrato y estamos pensando cuánto más nos van a aumentar, porque cada año es esto. Y entonces, y la necesidad pues que nosotros tenemos con nuestros hijos es grande también. Pensamos en ellos, pensamos en la renta, en la comida, en lo que ellos necesitan. Y pues estamos aquí pues para adelante y creyendo en su palabra, creyendo en lo que ustedes hacen por nosotros. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa. I live in Mount Rainier. I am here to speak in support of rent stabilization as well. As you guys know, the year is ending, and that means the new year is coming up. And for me personally, that means my lease is going to be renewed. And every time that happens, you know, I'm wondering and thinking, how much is my rent going to increase? Because I don't have that certainty of knowing how much it's going to go up. I have my children, you know, we have our families, our doctor and other bills that we have to worry about. So it would be nice to know that we have stability in what we will pay in rent. So I'm hoping that with all the support that we have on this council, we can get it done and get it done soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next in the speaker list, muchas gracias por los comentarios. And Jorge, thank you for translating. My brain it's been a long day. I've been having meetings since 5 a.m. All right, siguiente, tenemos a María Duarte, 2703 de la Allison. María, el micrófono es tuyo. Estás en mute, no se te escucha. Tienes que aprender el micrófono.
Bueno,
Dale.
buenas noches, alcaldes del concilio. Mi nombre es María del Carmen Duarte. Vivo en la 2703 de la Arizona Street, Rainier. Y estamos aquí para ver si a mí la renta me la subieron y estoy pagando, subieron $100. Y esto es mucho para uno porque me gusta esta comunidad y quiero ver si uno puede echar para adelante porque todo no me queda cerca e incluso queremos que una estabilización de renta y confiamos en ustedes y que Dios me le dé inteligencia y sabiduría para que pueda ayudar a la masa pobre y que todo, primero Dios y ustedes, y para adelante para ver si se hace una estabilización de renta, que no esté todos los años uno pendiente de que cuánto me van a subir de renta. Y que Dios le bendiga y que le dé inteligencia y sabiduría para que podamos echar hacia adelante, todo unido con la gracia de Dios. Gracias y feliz noche.
Gracias.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Duarte. I live in Mount Rainier. I'm here in support of rent stabilization. This year, my rent went up $100. And for me, that is a lot. It is a lot for all of the people in my household who depend on me, because now I'm having to work more, and it would be great to have stability and know how much our rent will be going up yearly, instead of just going into the office and then they tell us how much they want to increase it. I'm hoping, I'm praying to God that he gives strength and wisdom for you guys to help us out and, think about us who are definitely in need. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, guys. I did not take away the mute. Muchas gracias. ¿Alguien más que quiere hablar en este tema? Jorge, you want to say something?
I see Hilma is on the list.
Who else is on the list? Hilma? Oh, yeah. Hilma Chacón, 3332 de Buchanan. Hilma, el micrófono es tuyo. Thank you, Jorge.
Sí, buenas noches, alcaldesa y concilio. Mi nombre es Gilma Chacón y vivo en el 3332 de la Buchanan Street, apartamento 201. Llevo 6 años viviendo en la propiedad de Rainier. Desde que me mudé de mi dirección anterior, mi renta es de $1,535. Eso estoy pagando ahorita, más biles aparte. He vivido en Rainier. Esta ciudad ha sido buena para nosotros y mis niños les gusta su escuela y quiero quedarme aquí. Les gusta el ambiente, tienen sus amigos y eso es bueno para ellos. Finalmente les pido que por favor, es urgente que esta ley pase, ya que vamos a entrar a nuevo año en unos días. Escuchado mis vecinos sus aumentos y también ahora les pagamos biles, agua, parqueo y luz, todo por separado. Y es demasiado lo que están haciendo con nosotros. Piense en nosotros, los inquilinos, somos muchos en la ciudad de Rainier y no queremos los incrementos de renta altas. Por favor, pasen una ley de estabilización de renta. Gracias.
Gracias, Hilma.
Good evening. My name is Hilma Chacon. I've been living in Mount Rainier for 6 years. I live there with my family, my children, and I am here to speak in support of rent stabilization. My rent right now is over $1,500, and then we also pay bills on the side. That is a lot of money for me and my husband. We need rent stabilization. As you guys can see, landlords are charging us for almost everything and thinking of ways to charge us and increase our rents. Rent stabilization is what me and my neighbors need. I'm happy that you guys gave us the opportunity, to tell you our concerns, and also for you having heard our neighbors as well. We are asking that you guys please urgently pass rent stabilization legislation.
Thank you so much. Jorge, ¿vas a decir algo o está toda lista? No quiero haber perdido algo.
I do, but I know Olga wants to share if this is possible. We have a community member from Mount Rainier who's going through an unfortunate time with a family member, and they're at the hospital, but they really wanted to share some words, and I was wondering if it was possible for someone to read his words.
Yeah, you could, if you have it, you're welcome to read it.
Okay, Olga has it. Olga, usted tiene el testimonio.
Gracias por darme.
Hay un eco, lo podrían
Sí.
bajar el volumen a
Tengo
uno.
un poquito problemita aquí, entonces estamos en uno y estamos en el otro, pero muchas gracias por darme la oportunidad de dar el testimonio de Wilmer. Mi nombre es Wilmer Sandoval. Buenas noches ante todo, hasta alcaldesas y concilios. Mi nombre es Wilmer Sandoval y vivo en el 33 Chauncey Place y llevo 2 años viviendo en la ciudad. Vivo aquí con mis hijos, mi familia, aquí estudian en la ciudad de Rainier y mis hijos y yo deseamos quedarnos en esta ciudad y por esa razón les pedimos a ustedes que tienen el mando en el gabinete, en las posiciones que están, que nos puedan ayudar a pasar esta ley que tanto nosotros los inquilinos de esta ciudad de Rainier la necesitamos. Y muchos estamos pasando por muchos problemas. Por ejemplo, yo tengo a mi papá en coma en el hospital y no es fácil poder tener tanto dinero y no nos alcanza, no nos quedamos sin nada, nos quedamos sin nada, mejor dicho, para muchas cosas. Y pues venimos aquí finalmente a ustedes. Les pedimos que es urgente que esta ley se pase. Que para este nuevo año, pues podamos estar, aunque sea un poquito en esa parte, respirando más tranquilos, todos los inquilinos, así que piensen en nosotros, los que estamos pasando por estas necesidades de la ciudad de Rainier, que por favor pasen una ley de estabilización de renta lo más urgente posible que se pueda hacer. Y de antemano les agradecemos mucho a la alcaldesa y concilio por haber escuchado pues nuestras preocupaciones y demandas y llevar adelante esta ley de estabilización de renta que necesitamos mucho. Muchas gracias a todos y que pasen una feliz fiesta todos con sus familias.
Thank you. So my name is Wilmer. I live in 3313 Chauncey Place. And I've been living here for the past 2 years. The reason why we've been living here and why we plan on staying here is because this is a great community. My kids like the school that they go to. They like the friendships that they've made. And I think that's the most important thing of why I choose to be here, because my family likes it. We ask you guys and we come to you guys to talk to you because you guys are the ones that are in positions that can make these changes for our communities and for those of us who are going through tough times. Like myself, right now, my dad is in a coma and I am having to pay the extra bills in my family. And to be honest, right, with the high rents, there is no money left for anything else. And that is not something that should be okay for us to just work to be able to pay rent and not be left with anything behind. I really appreciate the mayor and the council making this time and space for us to be here and present our concerns and what worries us the most. And I definitely appreciate you guys moving on this much needed legislation. Thank you. And I just wanted to wrap up. For those of you that don't know my role at CASA, I am the lead organizer for Prince George's County. And CASA is definitely supportive of this rent stabilization law in Mount Rainier and definitely countywide. I think it's important, right, that we listen to the stories and the people most affected. And oftentimes it is working class folks. For many years, rents have gone up significantly higher than folks' wages. And a lot of the communities, right, are the ones that suffer these burdens, oftentimes having to take on extra jobs or just work extra hours and not spend enough time with family. I think, what the mayor has spoken about, the cap, the exception process, the vacancy, right, attaching the vacancy, or making the unit by itself and not attaching it to a tenant specifically are all protections that we support and believe are going to benefit the community of Mount Rainier.
Thank you so much, Jorge, for definitely translating it for your statement as well. I don't think my brain will have been working enough to translate tonight. Okay, so council, the time has run out. Can you guys add at least 5 more minutes to the clock, so at least we could have a discussion when it comes to next steps? Okay, thank you, Luke. It's probably been moved. I'll go ahead and second. Any objection? Abstention? Hearing none. 5 more minutes, Melissa. Thank you so much. Okay, council. So you have heard Jared, is it Jared? Sorry, I added the extra T at the end. Jared, anybody on Facebook making a comment? Thank you so much. So you guys have heard from the community members. I think I call upon all the ones that asked to speak. The next step for this is please review the ordinance. I'll be sending some information that has been given to me. If you have any question, please let us know. Trump, but also Councilor Mitchell, Casa have all made this stuff available. If you guys have any questions on process, procedures, or if anything else arises, please also send me a message. I have a lot of information in my head, so we put an ordinance in front that allow for the things that you heard and touch, including how to fund this program. But you also heard from our residents, like it's usually a struggle because they rarely know how much the rent is going to go up by. And basically they're at the will of the people that are raising the rent. So they could go from 900 to whatever they want to choose without even giving them a warning. They don't even have the protection, but it's more not just the protection of letting them know, but also making sure that it's steadily, you know, if it needs to go up within reason and steadily, but the rents have gone so much up that it is, you know, there's no ending at this point. And that will create for the lovely diversity that we have between ages and genders and ethnicity to be starting to wipe out even more in those apartments, because at a certain point, you know, they're not even going to be able to afford living there. And we have lost a lot of people having to move out. Even after right now, the insecurities of COVID financially, we're seeing even more people are trying to recuperate from the COVID financial hit. So there's a lot for us to do. So review it. It is coming up for the second reading on January 3rd. If there's something you guys want discuss, it's also there. So I'll go ahead and open the floor to you guys if you want to add anything else or anything you guys, any thoughts so far. Okay. So we're gonna go backwards. It's gonna be Luke, Jimmy. I think it was Valerie and Jared. Go ahead.
Mayor, thank you so much for all your work on this and all your organizing of people to come out. I just appreciate it. And everything, you know, I'm supportive of this. So my big thing is just making sure that the city attorney is good with how the legislation looks for our next discussion. And if she's good, then I'm good. So that's it. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
I'm supportive. I'm wondering whether we should send a notice to the apartment building owners just so we don't get in trouble later that they were never notified. I mean, I'm supportive, but I think one of the smaller apartment owners, you know, contacted me and said he had heard about this through the newspaper or through something, I forget. So maybe there should be like just some kind of, you know, kind of notice, or should be somewhat, you know, kind of, I don't want us to be criticized that people didn't know about it before we actually pass it.
Thank you, Jimmy. Valerie, then Jared.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you to everyone who came out and spoke, and to Trom for putting together that presentation. I thought it was helpful. And I think I agree with Jimmy. We should definitely make sure there's notice about all of this. And I agree with Luke that we should definitely make sure the city attorney has looked through this. I also want to make sure that we have staff capacity to handle this. So I think that's another discussion, but that might be something that we talk about during the budget season as we move forward. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jared.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for coming out, fellow council members who took your time out and attended another city's council meeting to speak tonight. And thanks to everyone from the community who spoke as well. And I'm very supportive of this, and I just want to make sure, as you know, as everyone kind of before me said, that we make sure that we, you know, engage with the community appropriately. Notice that we just, you know, make sure before we execute on this, that we have staff resources lined up. I want to make sure that if we put this in place, that we're able to administer and maintain it, administer it, ensuring that we, you know, protect community members as the legislation was intended if it does come to pass. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just to point out, it has been 3 meetings, open meetings that this has been discussed. And also at the same time, the Washington Post did make a reference that this is like on our deck. So it's not like people are not aware of. They know. I have no problem sending a notice, but I want to make sure that it is point out that this discussion have been held in open meeting. We could send it out. The study some cities have done it, some of them don't. It's not required for us to do it in order for us to put the percentage, and it sounds more or less like we're aiming at what it looks like the new percentage change nationwide. Okay, so I'll resend the resolution so you guys could take a look at it. I will send it back to legal. There has to be much change and hear from their feedback of what it looks like. Okay. Anything else that I'm missing? Okay, perfect. All right, so guys, review it, and if you need any information, let us know, and we will follow up until the next meeting on this step specifically. Okay. Good. Thumbs up, Council. All have you like stated your piece? All right, perfect, and thank you, Council members, Raud and Mitch also for joining. Like Jerry said, you guys have a lot of work in your cities, and we appreciate you also joining the discussion hours to have more understanding of what's going on in the other cities, but also why this is needing region-wide. Because even if our residents are being, pushed from here, they're not having any luck in any of the cities around either. So this is a case of this is something that's happening all around here. And not only are we going to lose like residents, like locally, but also like even getting them out of the county, which in itself is a big problem. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much. And Tran, thank you so much for making yourself available for it as well. I appreciate all the translation, but also working with the community for both of you.
¿Sí se puede? Sí se puede. Sí se pudo. Sí se puede. Yes, we can.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Okay, muchas gracias. Muchas gracias y buenas noches, okay?
We love it. We love it.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Councilmember Raudas. All right, so moving on to the next item on the agenda. Happy holidays, Trump, as well. Feliz Navidad o felices fiestas a todas las personas que también ya hablaron. Okay. So moving on to the next item, presentation, discussion, and Toole design contract to include the Vision Zero Action Plan. Mayor and Council will receive a presentation from Toole design project manager, James Elliott. James, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Jim Elliott, Senior Planner from Toole Design Group, and I'm here with my colleague, the Director of Planning for the Mid-Atlantic, Dan Goodman. Dan, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jim, and thank you, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for having us here today. As Jim mentioned, my name is Dan Goodman. I'm the Mid-Atlantic Director of Planning at Toole Design Group. I'm also the principal in charge for the project that we'll be talking about this evening. And it really is an honor to support the city on this important project. It's been a success so far. In large part, I believe, because of robust community engagement as part of this project that we've been working on since the fall, really. We've had a public meeting with more than 50 people have attended. We did a community survey where we had more than 200 responses, including 500 location-specific responses. And this is specifically about pedestrian and bicycle safety on the streets in Mount Rainier. We also did 4 focus groups as part of our project. All of that has been within our existing scope. and we've documented it very well throughout the process so far. So we are at a position now where we're ready to move on to the next phase of the project. And what we'd like to speak with you tonight is your desire to reframe and rescope the next part of the project to more directly align with USDOT's Safer Streets and Roads for All program. So I want to state at the outset that we've assessed our current scope and budget, and we want to walk through a proposed approach to change the scope to get you what you need and what you want. We believe that we can do that within the existing budget. We've also figured out how to add a public meeting because we've heard that that is very important to you all. So we're going to talk you through that. I also want us to start out by saying that we needed to do everything we've done so far, regardless. And so no funds have been wasted kind of on this project to date, and no opportunities have been missed as well. The next SS4A funding window is in September 2023. And so the change that we'll be talking to you about tonight can and will align with that next funding window for SS4A. And before I pass to Jim Elliott, who's our project manager on the project, I just want to emphasize that we're flexible and nimble. We're committed to getting the city what you all need on this project. Our intention tonight is to talk through a general proposed direction and hopefully get confirmation from you all that we're on the right track. Obviously, we want to get feedback from you on any potential adjustments. Then we will take what we've heard from you tonight and we'll do a track changes on the scope and send it back to the city. That is a change to the scope and the budget based on what we've presented to you and what we've heard from you in response. And then we'll be happy to revise that further, coming out of that draft that we send to you. But again, I want to say that we're confident that we can make the change and we can start moving on it right away. So on our end, we don't lose any momentum and we stay on track for a fall 2023 submittal for the SS4A funds from USDOT. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Jim Elliott to walk us through the details on how we're going to help you do that. So Jim.
Thanks, Dan. So I'm going to need to share my screen, and I think I can do that, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Can everybody see this? It's an outline I want to share, and there are a couple of things I wanted to cover before we get into talking about the proposal. And the first one is, what is Vision Zero? I think probably the council members are familiar with that, but I just wanted to make sure that
your screen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can make it bigger. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to provide a brief overview of what Vision Zero was. So these are some of the key principles of Vision Zero. One is that no death or serious injury is acceptable, and that the goal should be to eliminate all traffic fatalities and serious injuries. And this comes from the perspective that traffic fatalities and serious injuries are preventable. There really are no accidents. Humans inevitably make mistakes and are vulnerable to injury in the transportation context. And responsibility for ensuring their safety is shared between a number of players. Most importantly, system designers and policymakers. But within city government, this means multiple departments, multiple players are involved and responsible for ensuring that the mistakes that human beings inevitably make don't result in fatalities and serious injuries. And then the final piece of it is that this approach, the Vision Zero approach, should be a proactive approach. So we're not waiting for fatal and serious injury crashes to do something, and it should be data driven. Next thing I want to talk about is, let's see if I can whoops, is the SS4A grant program, the Safer Streets and Roads for All grant program. This is a grant program that was created by the bipartisan infrastructure bill that passed last year. There are other grant opportunities that came out through that. There are two types of grants associated with SS4A. There's an action plan grant, which is to develop a Vision Zero action plan and to take care of other planning related tasks. And then there's an implementation grant. And that grant requires that certain planning steps have already been taken. And it requires that, but it doesn't require concepts to be developed. So this is an important aspect, I think, for the proposal that I'm going to be presenting soon. And then finally, just a little bit about the grant cycle. So the first round of applications were due September 15th, 2022. So this past fall. The second round notice of funding opportunity is expected to come out in the spring with an expected application deadline in September 2023, although that's not certain at this point. So that's a little bit about Vision Zero and the Safer Streets and Roads for All grant programs. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Thank you so much for that presentation. Council, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor to you. So, sorry guys.
Jim has some. Jim, were you done?
I'm not done, so maybe I should just continue going.
My
I
apologies,
just
I thought you
wanted
were
to
done.
pause.
So go ahead and finish and we'll go back.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and finish. Yeah, okay. Oops, my computer is not working. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm having a little bit of difficulty with my computer here. So let me just do this differently. Go back up here. And so the next thing is really that the remaining budget that we have from this for this project is $75,000. So we kept that in mind as we were preparing this proposal for you. And this is the proposal itself. So I'm going to, as I present this, I'm going to talk about our remaining scope under the contract, the elements that are needed based on a review of the Safer Streets and Roads for All notice of funding opportunity and the accompanying self-certification worksheet. And then our proposal for incorporating those elements into this project without increasing the price of the project. So this is our remaining scope for the project. We have ongoing project management to do. We are scoped for 2 presentations to the City Council. We have a task that involves grouping projects and recommendations and then prioritizing them. And our aim there is to group them in a way that positions the city for grant opportunities, including SS4A. It included a design toolbox with some ideas for how specific design situations in the city could be addressed, and then concept designs. The elements that are needed for SS4A include additional existing conditions analysis, and that additional analysis is really focused on crash analysis. So we'd be looking at crash types, we would be looking at crash contributing factors. We would be mapping that out in a more sophisticated way than we've done so far. So far, we've done kind of a hotspot analysis, and we would be assessing risk is needed here. So there's additional existing conditions work that we need to do. There are additional engagement activities as well. And the main thing there is that the SS4A program requires the establishment of a task force or a committee to oversee the development and the implementation of a Vision Zero action plan. So we would, that's something that would involve both the city and us. We would be facilitating some of those meetings, and the city would need to establish that committee. The Vision Zero, the Safer Streets and Roads for All grant program requires a look at policies, guidance, procedures. So we would undertake that and develop recommendations related to policies, procedures, and guidance. We would do an equity impact analysis of, we would need to do an equity impact analysis of all of our recommendations, looking at how those recommendations would impact vulnerable groups, underserved groups in the community. We would need to provide a method for evaluating progress on implementation of the Vision Zero action plan. And then there would need to be a final plan itself that could be published on the city's website and shared with members of the public. So our proposal, and let me widen this out, is to, we would need some additional money for project management. We foresee that this would take us a little bit longer to develop because we would need to do the additional existing conditions analysis and the engagement activities. We would still be delivering 2 presentations to the city council, so that wouldn't change. But the focus and orientation of those presentations might change a little bit to mesh with this scope more. We would conduct additional engagement activities, so that would include the additional public meeting that has been talked about in the council to bring in folks to talk about pedestrian bicycle access. I think particularly bicycle related issues. But it would also include facilitating 2 to 3 task force, Vision Zero task force meetings. We would be doing the additional existing conditions analysis that I discussed, the additional crash analysis, mapping out a high injury network and high crash intersections, evaluating risks. So that would come under the existing conditions analysis that we would do, the additional analysis. We would be doing the additional policy review analysis that I mentioned, where we would be looking at the city's existing policies and procedures related to safety, also existing guidance documents, evaluating those, talking to folks in the community, and then developing recommendations. We would be doing the same type of project grouping and prioritization that we were originally planning to do, but focused more on safety related projects. We would provide guidance on evaluation, which would be incorporated into the plan. We would still be developing concept designs, but they would be higher level concept designs. We wouldn't be doing them in CAD. But as I mentioned, for SS4A and for many of the other grant programs that we're aware of, detailed concepts are not required. The grant programs themselves can fund the concept development. And then we would develop a draft and final plan, and this would be a more finished version of the plan than we would have delivered previously, something that could be published on the city's website and shared broadly and incorporated into the SS4A application. So that's our proposal. I wanted to cover a couple of key points, takeaways. So key scope changes related to this. So we would probably want to call this a Vision Zero action plan, so that there would be a name change, and that's just to fit more with the expectations of the SS4A grant. It doesn't mean that the plan wouldn't be useful for other types of grants as well. The scope would include the additional existing conditions analysis that I mentioned, the additional engagement, policy review, and evaluation. The timeline would likely need to be extended to allow for that additional analysis and engagement. The scope would not include the toolbox that was in our original scope, and the budget for the concepts would be reduced. And then finally, this is a summary of the actions that would be needed from the city, because the city would also need to take some steps. One of those would be to publicly commit to a goal of 0 roadway fatalities and serious injuries, and set a target date by which the city is trying to achieve 0 fatalities and serious injuries. The city would need to establish and empower a committee, task force, or implementation group, some kind of group, to oversee plan development, implementation, and monitoring. So this is a group that would begin with this project, but would need to be in place after the project is over to oversee implementation. The city would need to procure or provide police crash records. So we're going to need to take a more detailed look at the circumstances of fatal and serious injury crashes that have occurred in Mount Rainier. We need the city to share existing guidelines, policies, and procedures related to traffic safety. You'd need to post the plan once it's developed publicly. And then once the plan is developed and published, you'd need to commit to monitoring it, evaluating it on an ongoing basis. And so that is my presentation. And now I'll stop sharing and open it up to questions and discussion.
Thank you so much, Jim, for your presentation. Also, Dan, for being here as well, and for your part in the presentation and knowledge. I'm going to open it up to council. We're going to go with Valerie, Jimmy, Jared, Luke.
Thank you for your presentation. I don't know. I'm a little concerned that we've come this far, and we've had community meetings, and now we're changing the scope to include this. I think it's a good thing to do, because that was the original intent of doing this in the first place, was to go after these grant funds. And I'm concerned that they weren't included in the original contract, although they kind of were referenced in the exhibits. So, I mean, I'm glad we're addressing this now, but I think, we continue to have a community where people speed through the neighborhoods. Kids are out there walking across crosswalks, and we put this into a plan so that our community could have a comprehensive plan, rather than just speed bumps on one and then the next. But we've also had plans over the last 10 years that have already kind of addressed some of the things that we could do, like bumping out tree boxes in certain areas and to slow traffic. So I think I'm generally okay with this proposal. I'd like to hear what other people say, but I am a little bit concerned that this is the outcome that we're at right now. So thank you.
I can maybe speak to
Thank
that.
you, Valerie. Hold on. Thank you, Valerie, for your comment. Dan, you want to go ahead and make a statement? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to respond that when we program that additional public meeting, we can be sure that it's framed as kind of appropriately with the new scope, and also in a way that builds off of everything that we talked about in the previous meetings, because on a content side, not much is changing because we're still talking about the same topics and the same content. The result changes a little bit, but we hear you that it's not ideal, but we think it can be framed appropriately and also in a way that people know that everything that they told us before comes directly into this process. So.
Thank you. I think the other one thing I would think, and just, I mean, this is something for council to consider and think about, is that we do have a standing green team that has had a lot of input and say over various things, as well as the tree commission, which has worked with you already. So, you know, some subset of that group might be a good, you know, group to empower as a committee if they're willing to serve.
Thank you so much for your suggestion and also addressing your concern. Who was next? Oh, you guys were not paying attention, were you? It's only
Was it me?
the night.
Jimmy was next.
Jimmy,
And
you're
Jared.
next, and then Jared and Luke.
I don't have anything to add.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Jared?
Yep. No, thanks, Dan and James for coming in. Appreciate it. I'll just without rehashing what Valerie said, just reiterate it. You know, I think, you know, I'm excited we can kind of within the scope kind of reset a little bit and you know, realign the output of this to, you know, again, achieve some of the same goals that we're looking at and with slightly different outcomes in terms of the end product. I think, you know, your suggestion about tapering down some of the design pieces and pulling back on the granularity a little bit is helpful, because that's really what we need is somewhat more of the high level pieces. I think if, you know, and we're able to build, we should be able to build, I think, some of the cost of the executing implementation that into a grant. I will just, you know, reflect, having worked at DOT where this program is coming from, that there's never been a program like this before. There's a lot of money and there's a limited year window. This is going to be the second year out of 5, and who knows, it'll be around later. So we should take every opportunity to see that we can be able to bring the resources to get some of this executed here. Because we may not see it again from the federal government later, and the state will not likely have either. And I would just also echo Valerie's thought that, you know, I realize, and having been at DOT, when they put ideas and requirements and stuff in there, you know, some of them are easy to execute, some of them are a little bit harder. You know, if we have things that we need to build in, like committee oversight, I do agree that we should you know, build them into existing frameworks or existing committees, or rely on what we have already, rather than try to build something new. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I think both groups naturally fit that. So they'll be very outspoken about it as well, even if they were not part of the group. So that'll be the best strategy to go about, instead of trying to recruit a whole new group that it would delay any process that we have in front. Thank you both. Jimmy, then Luke. Oh, no, sorry, Jimmy. Luke, go ahead.
Mayor, I see we just have 5 minutes left, and we'll probably need more because I'm probably going to take up all my 3, and then you, and then we probably need responses
So
from.
is this your 1 minute to tell me you want to add 10 minutes on the clock?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so there's been a motion on the floor to add 10 minutes. Been seconded. Any discussion, abstention, objection? Hear none. Luke, you have your 3 minutes, and 10 minutes have been added to the clock, Melissa.
I think Dan and Jim, I think part of the frustration that I think Valerie's expressing, which I share, is that we are not going to need to reframe anything for the community. I think we already frame this as we're developing this holistic design. We're going to have a plan ready, and we're going to go get the federal money from the infrastructure bill. So our point of reference and framework running into this, and I think the community's point of reference running into this, was that this what's being presented to us today was the product that we were paying for and getting. So I think that if we go into this and say, well, now we're doing this, I think it's going to just confuse people, because people are going to be like, well, that's what we thought we were doing. What were we doing this whole time? So just flagging that. And I think when it comes to a meeting, I don't think at this point in time we need a standalone meeting for bikers and pedestrians. I think what needs to happen is a standalone meeting with the community where we can present the community with something that they can react to, whether that's everything that you guys have already compiled, saying, here's what we compiled, here's what we heard. Did we hear you right? Is this what we heard? Or what do you think? Do you think we want you to do X? Do you want to do Y? I think that sort of community meeting at this point would be most useful and add the most value to the community. So I think that's the community meeting that we're all seeking, something that we can put out to the community 2 weeks in advance saying, boom, this is study X or what we have so far, react to it and come to this community meeting and let's have discourse. Because I think that's kind of the, we told the community, and I think what we all still want is that robust discussion. And so we don't just want one community meeting, then you present a plan to council, and then we have another meeting in front of council. We want that community meeting to be something where it's very interactive, like the first one, and they can react to that. So I think that's number 2. A couple questions here. The why. So I don't know how to frame these questions best. You said no toolbox and that the budget for the concepts would be reduced. So in my head, I'm thinking like, I'm going to have a map of Mount Rainier, and you're going to tell me this is what that map of Mount Rainier should look. This is what 31st Street should look like, and Taylor Street and Upshur Street. These are what these should all look like. And here's where we need to have curb bump outs. Here's where we need to go one way. Here's where we need to have a bike lane. You're going to do that all for us. So help me understand, is that not what we're going to get? And does that relate to, and why is the budget for concept reduced and why no toolbox? I don't necessarily know how to answer that question, but that's sort of, I'm confused with those 3 pieces there, and how that all sort of fits together with the plan that we're going to get.
Should I respond
Jim,
to
would you
that
like to
now?
respond?
Wait, yeah.
You can go ahead and respond to him.
Okay, yeah. So I think one of the main things for Vision Zero and SS4A is that we need to do much more substantial crash analysis. So we need to look at the actual police reports. We need to do a risk assessment. So that takes a while to do. It takes a while just to get all the data together because it's multiple tables, and then to analyze it. So that's part of it. And then the other part of it is these additional pieces that are required for the plan for that particular grant program. And I'll just back up and say that there are multiple federal grants. There are multiple grant opportunities that came out of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. There are state grants as well. So one of the things that we're trying to do, and I think have done so far, is position you for all of those grant opportunities. What we're talking about now is just one of those. It's the SS4A program, and that one requires this additional crash analysis. It requires the task force or committee that oversees the process. So there's some facilitation work involved in that for us. There's the policy review that wasn't in our original scope that we need to do for this because it's part of the what's required for SS4A grant. And then there's some additional elements as well, like we've got to talk about how to evaluate the plan and provide metrics for that. So that's where that funding is going.
Yeah, I'm good with all that. I just sort of need to know, what am I getting at the end? What is that plan?
Well, I think, yeah, and I think it's important to note also that, well, we're aligning with the submittal to position you all to have the greatest likelihood as possible to get this money. One of the things is that the final plan looks more polished and looks more precise and more polished. It's less of a a working document, and it is definitely something that we are showing them that you've done the work and that we can check all the boxes that we have to check in order to be eligible for that money. So it is more of a polished document that you're holding that compiles everything that we learned about kind of from the community about what they need, and then brings in that crash analysis so we can add that to things like the prioritization and show that there's a quantitative piece behind it, that it's not just us saying this is what you need to do, it's more showing why the data is leading to those conclusions. And so there will be less kind of like pretty pictures to show what to do. That's what you lose on the concept part.
Yeah.
But to go get the money, you don't need those. And we're going to still try to get those into the document as much as we can, but we just have to be careful that we save enough budget in order to do all this extra analysis to make sure that you get through the door on the evaluation part of the grant. And like I said, as much as we can save and be as efficient as we can so we can still give you those concepts, we're going to do that for sure. But we just need to be careful and do that once we've done everything else successfully.
Yeah, but this will give the map of this is how Mount Rainier should look. And these are the specific things on every street, and instead of sort of the toolbox and the just a couple priorities here, it's like this is what we should do here.
It'll have specific information, recommendations on what needs to happen. Yeah, and it'll be based on all of that. Yeah, everything that we've done. Jim, please add.
For the city as a whole, or just like what you should do the next 5 years?
Mm-hmm. For the city as a whole, we'll be identifying projects on a map, and we'll also be showing a high injury network and high crash intersections on a map. So that's an important piece of this, identifying what that is in a community, which involves an assessment of crashes and risk, and so that's another map that's going to be in there.
And if I could just add one more thing, I do want to make sure it's clear that USDOT is setting up this program in a way that they very purposefully, and this is kind of a central tenet of Vision Zero, that it's not just a consultant delivering a document and that being enough. There is a requirement and an expectation that there is kind of an all hands on deck, genuine commitment to this concept. And so I do want to emphasize that as we go down this line, we're going to do kind of our part, but there's also a very significant part for the city council and the mayor and all the representatives to kind of bring everybody together and really make that genuine public kind of statement, because that's also part of the application. They want to see that.
Yeah, and that's the goal, I think, of that community meeting, is that we can have something for them to react to, and it can be that big, robust conversation.
You're about like 6 minutes.
I know, Mayor, thank you. I'm done, Mayor, thank you.
No, it's fine. I figure it was gonna go this way. So no, you're fine. I think that the whole council has addressed the same things that I had in the frustration over this is what thought we were signing up. So that way everything you guys are addressing to show up in part of this plan. And at this point, right? I don't want it to get lost that at the end of the day, yes, there's various things that we need to hit target to be able to get the funding. But we promised the community to have something in front of them to identify where it was needed for us to work on it, in order for them to understand that this is something we're also taking as a priority and it's important to them. I don't want it to get to a point that is so focused on the granting that we lose what we promised to the resident. And I think that's basically where I feel like the rest of the council saying, the original set was like to be able to go after this funding, right? But in doing so, we need to make sure we're able to provide like what Toole Design has done to us in the past, giving us a 5-year plan, letting us know where things need to be in order for us to be able to work it into our budget, in order to expand it, but also show the community there's a plan forward. And every year we're able to put X amount of money into the budget based on the things we need to. And if we need to use, in this case, we have ARPA in order to like expedite something, it is done. So that's what you're hearing from the council. So I definitely echo the sentiments of all of them. And, we look forward to having that document delivered in the same time, that priority, so that way we also have a way to go. Because last time around, they did it for streets and sidewalks. It was so efficient for us to point it so that when the community knew year 2, this is what we're doing. So they knew what was coming, but also allow for us to budget ahead of time. And the whole entire council understands that there are extra stuff that need to be added to the report in order for us to be available for granting. But I want to make sure you do know that 2 things could run parallelly. So that way we're able to get the community information need, the council things they need to prioritize to be able to fulfill the other part that you mentioned. The part that we are taking a commitment to make sure that we're doing this, and this is why we're going for the funding. It's just not to have a pretty document. And so far, this council, even like the last 2 councils that Luke and I have been part of, have been very committed to do their best to not archive reports, but moving forward, to try to implement them. And I'm not saying the other councils didn't, but I can only speak, to where we've been here. We have been very deliberate to make sure we take steps every year to accomplish the plans. And that's what's been successful for the sidewalks and street for us to be able to have a bigger goal. So that's what you're hearing from them. So yes, hit every box that we need to make sure we get it to the funding, but also that priority document is very important. So that way they have input from the community, but also at the same time, they know where we're heading and how we could budget better. Okay. And if that's clear, let me know if you have any questions on it. And council, give me thumbs up if you have anything to add, or that was a good overall summary where we at, or if you need the mic one more time, I'll pass it around. So I see Luke, Valerie, Jared, Jimmy, where are you at?
Mayor, can I just,
Valerie.
thank you. So Luke mentioned the community meeting. I kind of think that community meeting might be after the first council presentation, just in terms of timeline. I just wanted to throw that out there as an idea.
Okay, perfect. Jimmy, I didn't see thumbs up or thumbs down for you.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, perfect. So council, I think we made clear. Dan and Jim, if you guys have information, please reach out to us, so that way we're all in the same page, and we look forward to continue working with you guys. Okay, and definitely going after that money. We love getting state money. Go ahead, Luke.
I would just add one thing to Valerie. Jim and Dan, I think you understand our sentiment that we want to get with this community meeting. So think about what makes the most sense from your perspective as far as timing and what we could give the community to make that meeting really robust, so that they have an idea of where we're heading and can really give feedback to it, just to add on to what Valerie said. So, and that's for timing and content as well. Sorry, thanks, Mary.
So I would say in order to accomplish both things, send the document to mayor and council. You guys could do the committee meeting, but that way we have a purview of what it looks like right now. So if there's any input we need to send to you guys before the committee meeting, is also there as well. So 2 things could happen at the same time. Okay, that will solve both requests that we have in order for timing, but also for us to realize what it looks like. So we're able to get some feedback at the same time, help with the outreach for the community meeting, based it on the information that we know. And we also have some input, through it. And then we'll do the community meeting of combined input as well. So it goes simultaneous. Okay.
Yeah, we'll certainly do that. And as a first step, what we'll do is revise the scope and get that back in front of Mr. Kamali and make sure that we're all on the same page about what that is. And then we'll get running right away on this next part.
Perfect. And Mr. Kamali, if you could send it to council so that way they could see it, it definitely will help so that we're on the same page, that it covers everything that we're aiming at. Okay.
Will do.
All right, perfect. Rocio, I do see you. Do you have anything to add, or we're good, Rocio? Yeah, thank you, Public Works Director Rocio Latorre. She's in the line as well. All right. Okay. Moving on. Thank you guys, Jim and Dan. Thank you guys, and good night. And we look forward to seeing the scope information and moving forward with it. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. Moving on to item number 5. There are 5 items in the agenda, so be aware of it. Okay. Item number 5, presentation and discussion on Public Works Department first quarter report. Oh my God, Rocio, I'm so sorry. Wow. You're here for a report. Sorry, Rocio.
It's okay.
Okay. Rocio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Council,
city manager, and I see my fellow constituents online as well. Thank you for your time tonight in presenting my first quarter report. I promise to keep it as short as possible. So as you know, for the first quarter of the Department of Public Works, we have worked on various projects. Our department, on my first slide here, thank you, Melissa, for sharing my report here. Our department applied for a new grant with Chesapeake Bay Trust through the PG County Stormwater Stewardship Grant Program. This grant was for Arundel Road between 25th Street and 30th Street. We applied for this grant in November of last year, and we were awarded the grant for $150,000 on March 1st, 2022. EchoSite is providing the engineering services to support that CBT grant, to plan, design, and build the construction plans, which right now we are still at 30%. Slide, thank you. Also, we do have another grant, CBT grant, and this one is for $142,441, and that grant was awarded for 30th Street and 33rd Street. And at the time of this report, the construction bids were completed, and we moved forward with the bid process, and we selected Professional Lawn Maintenance Services LLC as the contractor for this project. And as you are aware, the project has been completed, and further updates and the full scope of the project and comments and everything will be on my next report. And I also added some photographs of the project. I think that one is on 30th, and then we also have a picture of the photograph on 33rd Street. Next slide. We also completed in the first quarter, we did our street and sidewalk improvements. We completed Rhode Island Avenue, 33rd Street between Shepherd Street and Perry Street, and then we completed also 30th Street between Taylor and Bunker Hill Road. Again, that project has been completed as of today. Our department also, of course, as you know, takes care of our tree maintenance and any plantings. We work alongside the tree commission when it comes to the plantings and everything that has to do with maintaining our trees in the city. But for this past fiscal year, we applied for the Tree City USA application, which was approved. We also received the plant certification for 2021. And this past year, we planted over 30 trees, and only 6 trees were removed last spring, which is good. On our next slide here shows the overall tipping fees that we spent for just the months of July through September. As you can see, the trash collection, the trash fee, the county has raised that fee from $56, I believe, up to $70 per ton. So the total final tipping fee for that quarter, for the first quarter, was just $20,662, which is a lot. And my last slide here shows all the miscellaneous projects that we do throughout the city, any projects that we do or any help that we get requested on. As you know, we also did a big project cleaning out the Potts Hall that took about a month to do. So that was a lot of workload, and that was sometime in September. We also assist city events. My team does the street tree pruning as much as we can, replacing street signs, regular grass cutting on a weekly basis, alley maintenance. We also took on the task of doing the rain garden maintenance. As you know, we have a lot of rain gardens in the city now, so that's also a bigger task that we deal with. I also have on here that we were working on the LED light upgrades through the PEPCO Small Business Program. for Melinda Miles Building on Perry Street and the Insurance Building, 3409 Rhode Island Avenue, which is on the second floor. As of today, that has been completed, and that will also be on my next report. And we also did the striping marking project on Arundel Road between 34th Street and 31st Street. That was completed in August. And of course, we have our quarterly e-waste collection that we handle every quarter. And that concludes my report. So I'll open the floor up to Mayor and Council, anyone who has any questions.
Thank you, Rocio, for your presentation.
Thank you.
I open the floor. Okay, so thank you for putting it into context. It's very nicely done. I'm gonna go ahead and open the floor up to council. So I'm afraid to even ask you, Luke. You look like you're ready to jump on the unmute button. Sorry, you're muted. Go ahead, Luke, Jimmy, Jared, and Valerie.
Rocio, you're doing an awesome job. Appreciate everything you're doing. Appreciate you staying up late here. So I would just say the one thing that would be super helpful to see in the future is when the recycling costs and the trash costs. If you could add in what was the cost the last quarter of the last year, just so we can see year over year how the recycling and trash costs change. That would be it. That would be the only thing I'd add. And other than that, just keep up the great work, and thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Luke.
Great comment. All right, so Jimmy?
Thank you again. Echo everything Luke said, nothing to add.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Jared, then Valerie?
Yeah, no, thank you, Rocio, for sticking through this far. This is great report. It's great to see how much progress we're making. All the work that your staff is really been doing. And yeah, I'm really happy with the progress you're making and all the, just the day-to-day upkeep that you've been able to, your staff to be able to manage. So thanks so much. And I don't have anything else.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you so much, Valerie.
Yeah, thank you, Rocio. I think this was a good report. I know you're doing a lot, and I appreciate all the customer service you do for our city and making sure that residents feel heard and you're talking to them. I do want to note, Luke, I had the same question about the garbage, except that because we had gotten the report from last year, accidentally put into the agenda package, that it was $59 per ton for trash. And then recycling and yard waste stayed the same as they are this year. So I don't know, I guess one question I have is why did it go up so much from $59 to $70 per ton? And then my other two questions are, I know there had been talk about going after Chesapeake climate change host site and becoming a host site for the Chesapeake Climate Corps at some point. I don't know I think the application was due December 8th. I don't know if that was applied for and if we have any information on that. And then I know rain garden maintenance has been a challenge a little bit. I wonder if you're thinking about plans for the next fiscal year about how that looks. So those were my three questions. And thank you very much for all your work and your report.
Thank you, Valerie. Go ahead, Rocio.
Thank you, Valerie. I appreciate all your comments and your feedback and your positive support with the department. So I'll definitely add the last quarter tipping fees and information moving forward. That's definitely something I'll do. In regards to the county increasing their rate, it's pretty much we received a letter from the county just stating that there's the increase in the amount of tonnage in the waste tipping that's been done throughout the entire county has been a lot. So that's why they had to increase their rates. Otherwise, that's all the county has shared with us. And as far as the climate change host site, for that application, we did not apply for that yet. I thought I'll look into it because I thought that application was going to be due at the end of this month, but I'll double check. But no, as of now, we didn't apply for it. And in regards to the rain garden maintenance, I've certainly discussed this with the city manager, Mr. Kamali. In our next budget proposal, we are going to request to possibly seek out a third-party contractor to do the maintenance because it does require a lot of maintenance and work that unfortunately the 7 guys that I have on my team, it takes them a lot of time to get through. So I think we need actual professionals and another contractor to take on that job.
Thank you.
Valerie, that cover everything? Valerie, you're good? I think Valerie first. But Rocio, thank you so much, and also extend a thank you to your team. I know you guys do a lot of work and we throw a lot of things on you. A lot of the times we do outstanding grants and you guys bear a lot of the work on it. Among like everything else you guys do for the community, you guys have like ridiculously consistent through COVID. Your team was there. There wasn't like trash, recycle, or waste. Well, waste was like waste, but not drunk. So that was very good because it kept us healthy. It kept people like feeling within reason that that it didn't create like additional health hazard. So we look forward to continue working in your team. I know you took the leads of the department. Thank you for that. I know that was definitely a step up, and you're doing wonderful. Okay. So if you see any grants out there that you need support for, please let us know. So that way, you know, we could apply as a city, or if you see something like in this case, you're talking about the rain gardens, right? And how that might need an extra, what's it called, a contractor to take care of this. That's definitely a good suggestion, especially because we do have a lot of them. What I will ask, if it's not already in our city website, if you guys could create a map with like where the rain gardens are all over the city, so that way residents are aware of where they're at, and also look into what other spots are potentially needed that could be funded based on, on the work that you guys do, so we could project if this is what we're going to continue applying for when it comes to this grant, or what it looks like when it comes to other grants, like what are the goals for the other grants. Ideally, like all the directors are drawing what grants they're going to apply for next year or what they're seeking us, so that way our grant our grant writer could start looking into, like, if you say, okay, this is the kind of work that we're thinking of doing this year. So if you guys run into a bill, a grant for this, right, that'd be something we'll be interested on. And, I think all of us have done a pretty nice job at like sending you guys like grants and information. So if we run into it, sometimes repeatedly, I know a couple of us send like one of the grants like 4 different times, and you guys have covered, but take that as like, we'd rather you see it 4 times in front of you that later on you tell us nobody mentioned that grant existed. Okay. But you guys are doing great. Thank you for your support, and do thank the whole team for being out there. They're usually pretty good with the clockwork. I could usually set my clock based on when they pick up my trash, and I pay attention, as you know. If it's like 7:05, I'm like, is everything fine in Public Works? They're usually on the dot at 7. But thank you so much, and thank you for the report. And definitely I echo the sentiment of adding that extra stuff. Maybe also because once we do the compost part of it, I would like to see what the effects have been, and the trash when it comes to the city. Even with a small amount, have those numbers drop, and what impact it will have as a city overall if we continue going that route. Because ideally is to have like, that run through be like, a citywide program, right? But definitely being able to showcase those numbers might be able to help for us to look either for grants, but also like showcase where we're at with trash and recycle and waste. And if compost has made any impact, especially with the trash. And yeah, Valerie, for the county, the increase, they actually like send a letter out, and originally was supposed to happen a lot sooner, and they delayed because they heard complaints from everybody saying, hey, you went up like too quickly. We need some time to adjust as this, be honest. So they changed it so that way it got added to this year's budget. But originally it was supposed to be in the middle of last year's cycle of budget, and they realized that it meant like a significant raise. And more or less like the teams, they budget based it on what they yearly do, but definitely this almost double like what the cost was. But yeah, so if you could provide that information so we could determine what compost is gonna, how positive compost has affect the reducible of trash. Rocio, that'd be great. I know like, with the bigger recycles, we did start some drop also, like, people trying to fill out more recycling than they do a little trash can. So we want to make sure we have all that compared as well, because when we go for our, our green awards, that will be able to showcase that information. And we were just certified, so we'll see what that looks like. And eventually we could use that compost maybe for our gardens and parks and stuff like that. All right, perfect. You heard all of our accolades. Thank you so much. And thank you for immediately acting to stuff. The lights are working. I drove by tonight. I appreciate you guys a lot for being so active and definitely very active to the community. Thank you for that as well, okay?
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
All right, perfect. Council, I think it's fair to let go of Rocio. Rocio's late. Have a good night. I know you guys have to get up really early tomorrow. It is trash day, trash pickup day. So the guys are here extra early, and so are you. All right, so have a good night. Thank you for everything. And please share the thank yous to your team as well, okay?
I certainly will. Thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Have a good night, Rocio. All right, moving on to the next item. Ooh. Melissa, you're gonna have to make this a little bigger, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. It's like ants crawling through my little screen. All right, so, Melissa's item. Discussion on amending resolution 05-2019. The newsletter guidelines. This is 20 minutes. Mayor and Council will have a discussion on amending the resolution 05-2019. Can you put up the resolution, Melissa? 05-2019 is basically a resolution that states how often and how we're going to go about sending the city newsletter. As it is no surprise to any of you guys, the newsletter, when we have had to be in time urgency, like basically our team has had to drop it. And recently what we've been doing a lot of is making a lot of copies and taking them to the apartments like offices. Also the businesses, Rainier Manor for sure. What's it called? Some of the nonprofits, the library, and have some issues available so that way people could pick them up, and severely push the electronic notification notice. So that way, more people get their newsletter information that way, because it's immediate sense of information. So, Melissa, can you go to the parts that is being asked to change? So all of that is why the newsletter is important, how we communicate, so all of that great stuff. You could just mention them, Melissa. Would that be easier? Or do you have a document that you want to show instead of this? All right, so the city is proposing to go green and would like to modify the current newsletter guidelines within the following. The newsletter we publish electronically, except for a number of paper copies that will be published and distributed to library, apartments, business offices, schools, and local businesses. For the modification, we will conduct a survey to determine how many residents prefer an electronic digital copy or an email or a mail paper copy. Post a newsletter on all social media platforms, including MRTV. Encourage residents to subscribe to electronic notifications to receive the newsletter. So this will push towards going more electronic to start killing over 4,000 plus copies that go every other month to the residents. A good amount of them don't even make it to their homes, but we want to make sure we still make enough issues available in case they need it, but also take them to some of the more sensitive parts where they will need a more accessible paper copy. Residents could still request a paper copy if that's what they want. But almost 5,000 copies are not going to be mailed every other month. That is what the team administrative / communication is presenting to you guys. So Melissa, did I miss anything?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, we are killing quite a bit of trees. The issues are about 8 to 12 pages, Melissa. Somewhere around there every time it goes out. And all right, so I'm gonna open up the floor console so that way I hear from you guys where your thoughts are. This is just a This is presenting you the document. There's obviously no voting right now, but this is where they're aiming at, okay? So I'm gonna go with Jimmy, Jared, Valerie, Luke. Jimmy, the floor is yours.
So the two, I want to say contradictory. I understand the thing about asking for modification. And we just have a number of residents who don't, older residents who just, who live in the houses who aren't online. And I don't know how we, make sure they get that. I mean, the guideline doesn't really indicate how they would do that. Conduct a survey, but is there, a way to actually have people, mail it only to those people who need it?
That's what they're
question. I'm not
saying.
quite sure I understand.
That's what they're saying. You could, for those seniors and people that want the newsletter, they could request a newsletter.
How would they do that?
Send to them electronically. So Melissa, you want to speak a little bit about that? But basically, they're going to send a document out with a survey asking them if they still prefer a paper copy. They're going to send it in paper mailed, so that way they're able to notify them if this is something they want. Correct, Melissa?
Yes. So what we're trying to do is to cut down, of course, on the paper copy, because not everyone wants the paper copy. Some persons prefer the digital copy, but we still want to give those residents who want the paper copy to get that. So we're going to do a survey where we send a survey out to all the addresses. So you have that option to choose if you want the paper copy or you want the digital copy. So we will only mail to those houses that prefer the paper copy.
And my question is, what kind of survey would that be? Would it be like a card that they could respond to?
Yes.
So it'd be a card.
It's yes.
And with they could just put it back in the mail or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Any other questions, Jimmy? Oh, that covers yours.
No.
Perfect, thank you. I guess we're gonna go Ward 1. I forgot who was it. Luke, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I had the same question Jimmy did. So just want to make sure that I would appreciate if you shared with the mayor and council what that card or letter or survey would say, so that we can comment on it. I just want to make sure it's really clear and simple to understand. And then obviously that it would have a if we could pay for the postage to return it to us, that would be good as well. Because I am just, there's a lot of people who do rely on it. And I enjoy getting it in the mail, but that's just me. But I think otherwise, if folks want to just get it electronically, and they make that choice, that's fine. And obviously saves trees. Thanks.
So you're not gonna save a tree, Luke? Is that what you're saying?
I like getting the letter.
Wow, tree commission, a tree commissioner liaison. Kills the tree getting newsletters. All right. Valerie, Jarrett, go ahead.
So I mean, I don't know. I also like getting the message in the mail. It's cute. It's fun. It makes you feel like a community. So I mean, I guess some questions. What if every single or the majority of residents still want to get the message in the mail? Have you considered the impacts of what that would look like and, how that would be managed? And then 2, I mean, at one point, that, Public Works during their garbage pickup, would just run the message to the door and leave it at the doorstep. I know that's not a good use of Public Works time, but have we considered anything like that? I mean, I think it's fine to move electronically, but I just think there's a number of people that are going to be probably disgruntled about this, so just putting it into consideration. So thank you.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Yes. So if after the survey and residents prefer to have the paper copy, we would just stick to the paper copy. If after the survey, most residents prefer the electronic copy, as you talk about Public Works, we thought about that. So if it's not many that we have to actually mail, we will have Public Works look at that idea of having Public Works drop it off. So we did consider that. But whatever the survey comes back and whatever the residents prefer, that's what we're gonna go.
Valerie, that covers your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Jared?
Yeah, no, and Melissa, thank you for thinking through this. I know this has like been an intractable issue with postal problems. So I like getting the paper version too. I'd happily make it easier on it myself and others, I think, to get it electronically. I do agree with Jimmy's point that well, first off, I do think, yeah, we need paper copies to be, distributed centrally. Libraries, you mentioned these other places, so folks can know where to pick one up. I think that would be really helpful. And then, yeah, if folks can opt in, my guess, I don't know, of course, my guess is that the vast majority of folks will prefer to opt in to getting an electronic copy and not a paper one. Yeah, so then, if we only have a small handful of folks that we can accommodate with paper delivery, whether it's by dropping it off, or the other question I had was, I know we use like a bulk postage to deliver the message because it's much cheaper. I also believe that's the reason why it's been like so heinously delayed all the time, because I think postal service is like last priority. So I don't know if we have a very small cluster of folks that get the message by paper once we go through with this, if there's a way to use a more expedited but possibly more expeditious postal stamp delivery method. So that's all I have. I do want to, we should do the thing that makes the most sense. I don't want to burden Public Works with trying to deliver newspapers every morning too. So.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think that when we've had it an emergency, it's fine for them to do it, but to do it every other month, the reality is like it's going to be hard. They're already dealing with the elements and trash and everything else. That's been done, like I said, like in emergency, like, when we had to submit the letters for the elections, right? We didn't trust for them to get in the mail. They were done that way, and it was only half a ward, not the whole thing. So I will say to you, it's like, yeah, this has been a chicken and egg conversation for the last, 7 years, Luke? That we've heard this argument back and forth. We always end up nailing them in. And I was going to ask you next, Jimmy, where you said 13, and I could probably talk to Brian and Melinda, and they'll tell me this is going on for like last 25 years at least, right? So I would say that
I have another suggestion.
Hold on. Wait, I'll give you next one. I'll tell you this: the people that I talk to, they're very attached to the newsletter. Whether and this I'm not talking about people like, so I was giving a hard time to, but the reality is like, even as savvy as we all are with our phones and everything else, it feels like you could literally sit down and read a newsletter like in paper, and you have something tangible to go to, right? I don't know if it's like a comfort thing to still feel like we're a community, or a comfort to be like, I have it within my hands, so I could reach it instead of going to 1,000 emails. That people love it, but people are very attached to the newsletter. That's the reality of it. But I think it's good for us to put the survey out to figure out what they prefer. If they prefer both, then we'll be like, I'll be good in the card, Melissa, for you to do. If they say both, let's say, have them add their email address so we could add them to our e-notification. So if out of all of this, the end goal is to get more people to sign up to the e-notification, that's, even if they have like the paper one, then at least it's a win where we get more people added to our over 1,000 people that are already the electronic information notice that goes out to them with a newsletter. That's the number the communication gave me. Aside from X amount of people that see the newsletter online, Facebook and everything else. So, I mean, it's good to go out and put that information out and figure out what their thoughts are. Jimmy, go ahead. The floor's yours.
Yeah, I add an additional idea, which I think might work, is why don't we have like some newsstands, like 4 or 5, where you put the newsletters and you let people know where they are, like, 4 or 5 in the city with like, we had those, what they call them, the little libraries, where people go, but you actually have, put up like, 4 or 5, and you actually kind of let people know that, you can get a newsletter at such and such street, and if empty, we fill it up again, so we don't do postage. I think that might work, people want a newsletter, they walk to 31st and Upshur, or, walk and pick up a newsletter. I mean, that's what we do when we get newspapers. So that's something else to think about.
Yeah, the little free libraries, so the free little pantries. The reason why it's, it was thought like, I know through COVID we have put in, was it COVID right before, one or the other? We were put it like in the businesses, like St. and Joe's, in the library and stuff like that, common places in the office, was one, to protect them from the elements, and two, so that way they could hand them out, right? Instead of just having them there, because you will have to have somebody to go go check on those little boxes and refill them, or how do you call it? Or make sure that nothing has been thrown to like damage them. That's the reason why we originally was around the person, because the concern was that they will open it and throw something at it, and there went everything else. But yeah, put the surveys together and let's figure out. I mean, you can always put as part of the newsletter, Melissa. So that'll be a good litmus test to see like how many people are actually reading it, and they could reply and see how many of them you get back. But I don't know how you're gonna do it with the postage. So you might have to talk to Linda to see if they're, even if it's the final, like even if it's an insert, so that way has their own fold it and throw it in the mail kind of thing, All right. All right. Anything else to add to this, guys? Council members? No? Thumbs up if you're ready to move on. I see Jerry, Valerie. Luke, you have something to add? Jimmy?
No, I just,
Go ahead.
yeah, I think this can be a bigger issue than maybe this is a big issue for a lot of people. So part of me, is nervous about touching this. So just express that.
I know people are very sensitive to the newsletter, but I think that if you include an insert in the newsletter with a one pager and ask people, even if you were to just give the option of bold, at least they know like it's available electronically. But at the end of the day, if all of them come back, we could say like, hey, we're trying to go green, but majority of the city, this is what they wanted. So if the decision's not on us, it's on them. So there you go for participatory, like direct involvement. Okay, so Jamie, you were good, or you need something else to add?
I'm fine.
All right, perfect. So we'll move on to the next item. Okay. Wow, this is a big one too. Oh, it's not that bad. This is item number 7, introduction of ordinance number 11-2022, amending the Code of Ordinance of the City of Mount Rainier, Chapter 1D Ethics, to incorporate the changes required by the Maryland state law to local ethics ordinance regarding conflicts of interest and financial disclosures, and to update references to state law. 15 minutes. This was put together by a city attorney. Basically, is bringing our code, our ethics ordinance up to the new Maryland law, and that's what's being presented here. Melissa, can you go to some of the changes, please? And she also emailed it to us, so you guys do have a copy with all the track changes. Let me see. So a lot of this, what is the ethics board, what it does, go on. I think one of them was, go on. And she is preparing also an ethics document for those of us that don't have to run, that are not running, they're not running for re-election, that are not up for re-election should be the right term. All right, so can you make it big, Melissa? I know, Melissa, just by default, make it big, okay? All right. Do you remember what the change was, Melissa, or no?
Not exactly. I will have to.
So I think one of the changes was that if you own a corporation and you benefit for a corporation, it used to be 25, now it's 10%. They need to declare certain information, right? But Council, this is just a presentation. Please read through it, and you do have it in your emails, and it'll be out for both on January 3rd. But she presented in front of us just because we usually like to present it in front. But she basically took all the new Maryland state law that's going to be coming to effect into this document to make sure we were up to date by the time we vote on it and it was approved. Okay. So as you guys know, we all have to do this a document every year. When you run for election, you have to turn it in before the end of April. So you have 30 days before the election. And if you're not up for an election, you have to turn in every year, regardless to the city clerk. The ethics commission reviews it. If they have any questions, they send you whatever information they have. You submit whatever you have to submit and go, and that goes to all the candidates as well running for office. Okay. So here it is in front of you. All right, you guys, if you guys didn't have a chance to read it, just read it in your email, and that track changes are a little bit highlighted. For the future, Melissa, let's make sure we highlight the changes so that we're aware of it as well, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Melissa. But it was about 3 or 4 things changing. It was more like what you report more than anything. All right. Any questions, Council, or are you ready to move on? Luke, I see yes. Jimmy, yes. Jared, yes. Valerie, yes. Jimmy, your thumbs up?
I'm fine.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Okay. So if you guys have any questions, please send it out to Alyssa regarding the document. Like I said, it's just to bring it up to date. Item number 8, ARPA discussion and update 25. Do we have anything from ARPA, or you just want to skip it for next year?
Skip.
Guys? Skip, Luke, Jimmy, Jared, Valerie, where are you? Skip it. Jared, skip it.
Yeah, I'm
Valerie?
good. I'm good skipping it for right now. I do want to, I had talked about coming up with a proposal for housing repair programs. And then I had also I have been working with the Gateway CDC about funding opportunities as well. So just to keep it on everybody's radar. Those are the 2 things that I'd like to come back to the next time we talk and discuss.
You're thinking of being ready for January or February work session?
Yeah.
All right. Perfect, Valerie. Thank you. Thank you for moving forward with that. I know it's very important. All right, Jimmy, if you're good?
Yeah.
Okay, so technically we discussed it. Move on. Item number 9, this has Melissa and her team reading all over it. Presentation of minutes. The city clerk will present the following minutes to Mayor and Council. April 6, 2021 legislative meeting, November 15, 2022 work session, December 6, 2022 legislative meeting. Council, please turn in this work to Melissa at least the Wednesday before the meeting, so that way Melissa could make the changes. And these 3 of them are gonna go for voting on January 3rd, correct, Melissa?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you so much. So please also thank Gabby for both of you guys work on this. I know you guys love hearing our meetings and writing them down like the weeks after. It makes your life extra interesting.
Also, Bill is trying to assist us too, so.
Oh,
thank
Bill,
as well.
okay, so Gabby, Bill, Melissa, thank you guys all together. But in all reality, thank you guys for making sure that we're up to date with our minutes and making sure we're cleaning up the last minutes. The other thing for council to know in the community, if you go to our City of Mount Rainier page, there on the agenda section, you have the agenda, the package, the minutes, the YouTube link with time track records. Jared, thank you for that as well. And you also have the approved minutes, so the members of the community could see the whole entire thing, but also it's good for us in case you want to go back to another meeting. Everything is being together. I know I requested this, and thank you guys for delivering, but it makes life easier for all of us and for the community to be able to follow through with the meeting's agenda in minutes. The other thing to address on this, when it comes to the presentation of the minutes is and the meetings and all this information together for the residents. Some of the residents have stated that the cable TV channel for the meetings was not working. The team got on it, and it is working. They actually have a box now in the City of Mount Rainier City Hall to check that MRTV is passing the information across. So thank you for making sure you took that into account, Melissa, Jared, Pink, and all of you guys, okay? All right, Council, so please turn it in by the Wednesday before. And Melissa will have, ideally, if you guys want to look at it by Friday, so she has enough time, to make the changes, it'll be best, okay? So please don't wait until last minute, because it is a lot of work for them to do this and everything else they're doing. All right, Anything else? We're good? Okay. Moving on to item number 10. I am gonna read the upcoming events because Melissa has sentenced me. If I don't, she will find me. Okay, before I do dismissal, there's employment engagement. On December 23rd, the city will be closed. A question for council. Are we, I thought we had agreed to just, it's a state holiday or state off, or is it just for the state employees? So they're closing.
I think the question, I think in the past we agreed. No, I don't know what we agreed, so.
Okay, so at this
I mean,
point.
I don't have a problem with us closing, especially given the weather, if that's your proposal. What are you suggesting?
Well, I had talked to Mr. Kamali in the past and told him if the weather, so if the schools have like 2 hours delay, like, you could delay the office open because, the staff needs to get their, they need to get safely here. The school's not open on the 23rd, so it makes it a little bit harder. But it's up to, we'll leave it up to the city manager. But he needs to let us know as soon as possible because we need to notify the community that recycle will not be picked up. I will tell you that people were concerned because they're having family over, but they'll survive. People do recycle heavily in the city, which is a good positive thing. All right, so let's figure that one out. The other one is you are closing at least 2 hours early, Melissa, you deleted it. Christmas holiday, December 26th, the city offices is closed. And New Year's holiday, January 2nd, the city office will be closed. Melissa, does both of those days land Monday?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So chances are the Friday before and the 2 Fridays before, you guys are gonna have closing early as well, right? 2 hours early. So
That's customary. I'm not sure.
So make sure that's added in the agenda so that way and put it on the calendar so that way people are aware. Because if people utilize whatever time they get early dismissal, so that way they could come and do stuff at City Hall. So the 25th to 23rd, and whatever the other December is, the 2 hours early, make sure it's up in our calendar and our meeting, so that way they know that you guys are closing 2 hours early those days too. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much. So anything else, Melissa, before I adjourn? When you come after me. Okay, so staff and council, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I know some of our residents are currently celebrating Hanukkah. So big thank you to all of our residents for coming out and helping to give. Over 650 baskets were given out. And thank you for our team and our staff for working alongside every volunteer. Big thank you to Roots and Shoots who helped with the food collection. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and our youth explorers. All 3 groups were very instrumental, along with various great volunteers. Ms. Dunmore, Mario, Lee, Ms. Cook, they all Ms. Linda Couch. They all were very key in helping, and the list of volunteers go on. We'll be posting some of the pictures thanking them as well. But it's so great to see so much kindness in the city, not just donating, but also everybody coming together to put that also to all 3 schools. Cesar Chavez, Marine Elementary, Thomas Stone, and their community liaisons and principals. They're outstanding team members to help us out into the various churches and minister services that have been doing food distributions. Thank you so much for looking out for our community. So I will close with that. Our next meeting is going to be next year. So, happy holidays and happy new year. Okay. So council, I'll give you guys a final word if you guys want to say something as we wrap up this year. So Luke, I see your mic open. Go ahead.
No, I would just say thank you to staff for staying, and thank you, Mayor, and everyone else for helping out on so many events. I have done nothing for events except for a couple green team events recently, and just appreciate you all doing all that stuff while I take a step back from a few things. So just appreciate you all, and have a happy holiday and good New Year.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Good night, everybody.
All right, Jared.
Happy holidays, and thanks to everyone, staff in particular, for all your work.
Valerie.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's been an amazing journey so far in my council tenure, watching the city as it grows and changes and builds its resilience. So thank you, everyone, and have a great new year, and see you in the new year.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamali. I'll leave you the floor as well.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I wish you guys a Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, be safe and enjoy it. And I'll see you guys on January the 3rd. If you guys need me, please call me, even over the holiday, please.
Okay, so thank you, everybody, for your hard work. I see our chief is also here. Thank you, Chief. He just came back from the transition board for Governor-elect Wes Moore as a member at large. So thank you, Chief, for representing us also in the transition government team. I really do appreciate that as well. So we have representation in quite a few of the transition teams. Okay. So everybody, thank you guys so much. And to our community overall, please travel safely. Do remember that safety is number one and we care for each other. So any decision you make is for your own safety and the safety of others. Don't be speeding through the city. And to our little ones, they are going to be going into winter break. So have fun. And I want to thank, I received at least 30 thank you cards and from the youth. So I wrote each one of them back. So thank you for that. Little ones, giving us your feedback, and you guys are ready to engage in Richardson Park. So we're looking forward to doing that this upcoming year. All right. Thank you guys and have a great night. Okay. So I'm going to do a vote to adjourn. So it's officially adjourned, the last meeting of this year. All right. Can I have a motion on the floor?
So moved. Seconded. Sorry.
Here. So it's been probably moved and second. Any discussion? Objections? Abstentions? Hearing none. This meeting has come to an end. So see you guys officially next year, and staff, I will see you tomorrow. Melissa's like, I will see you tomorrow. So Mr. Kamali, let me know when you need me to stop by and sign the checks for the employee bonuses, okay?
It's gonna be a direct deposit, Mayor.
All right.
Yeah, because we need to give it to them as soon as possible.
All right, thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night.